Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here,
And Blue Dragon 5.
and welcome to the show where we wax poetic about the movies that we see on a month-to-month basis. It's time to crack open our
Movie
movie
Memoirs!
memoirs. That's right, folks. And tonight we are here to read the cheap airport romance novel that is the January movies. Oh, yeah. But of course, before we get into our movie stuff, we have to get into the news. So Dragon, very, very recently, as in like yesterday recently, we lost a legend, the one, the only, the great Carl Weathers. Now, folks, we could literally sit here for at least a half an hour and just discuss the legacy that this man has. And that's exactly what we intend to do, because what we're essentially going to do with Carl Weathers is we're going to roll him into our Black History Month coverage, and we're going to do a whole in memoriam for him. So rest assured, we're going to give him his proper due. But yeah, I mean, obviously, Dragon, just big icon, legend, like it's a blow. That's all you can say. It's a blow.
It really came out of nowhere. He wasn't sick. It was just really very surprising. But again, we'll give him his proper due this month. And probably, I don't know if it's going to be the first thing we do. It depends, because we have something kind of time sensitive coming up. So it's either going to be the first or second thing we do, most assuredly.
Uh-huh. All right. Yeah, Kogias, I'm kind of with you with, like, I've seen the Rocky films, but I kind of know Carl Weathers more from other stuff like Happy Gilmore. So I'm kind of in the same boat as you. All right, but let's move on to some of the other deaths this month. So Dragon Adam Canto, I don't really know this guy. I like he was in Days of Future Past, but not really a big role. So you can take the lead on him.
I mean, all I just want to say about Adam Canto is he was really big in Designated Survivor. He was like the chief of staff who had a bit of an arc. Good actor. Again, it was kind of like, I kind of had no idea, like, oh, that's the guy from Days of Future Past. Oh, what do you know? And he was died very young and very sad, because the young man was full of talent.
Indeed.
Okay, Cindy Morgan. Now, Cindy Morgan, we all collectively know to some degree. To some degree, in that she's basically, through pop culture osmosis, she is like the attractive woman from Caddyshack. She is Lacey Underall, like the famous like the girl at the pool.
She's kind of like a famous 80s bombshell.
Exactly.
Comedies, essentially. Like, that'd be the best way to describe her, I think.
Absolutely. That is also was in Tron. She was the girl from Tron.
Yes, which for me is the most memorable performance.
I'm just saying, I bring up Caddyshack because it's like one of the best introductions you could have to an attractive female character in an 80s movie ever. It's like they literally the Family Guy's parodied this for back in its heyday, for pity's sake. Just the idea, like, she just comes there and then she goes for the big dive, which apparently was really hard for them to shoot because she had contacts she couldn't have in the pool, so she was doing that whole scene blind. Which is really impressive. And lastly, Anophelia Morguley, if I'm saying that remotely correctly, Mama Coco from Coco.
Yeah, just another big kind of, like, we know her mostly from pop culture osmosis with the Coco stuff, but just a big, I would say probably iconic actress in the on the Hispanic side of things.
Yes.
All right. Let's see. Kogia says R.I.P. Adam Canto. Days of Future Past is my number one favorite X-Men film.
Yeah.
Indeed. All right. Well, that's it for the deaths. Let's go into the death of a show's opportunity to win Emmys, Dragon.
Yes, now we're talking about the worst first world problems.
Indeed. So this is just ridiculous. Better Call Saul has now officially ended its run with 0 Emmy wins. It now has no other chances to win Emmys. And Dragon, I just don't know what the I don't know if it's just like Better Call Saul is kind of like turned into too much of a brand now. Like, it's like the Breaking Bad universe is kind of like an IP in its own right. I don't know if the Emmys have some sort of bias there, but it's ridiculous. I mean, like specifically, Odenkirk should have gotten it at least once for lead actor. Ray Seahorn, we've been
To be fair, they all should have gotten it at least once.
Right, Jonathan Banks. I mean, I don't know. It's just crazy that they never won a single Emmy the whole time. Shows like The Wire are also kind of like in this prestigious camp, and The Wire, I feel like has kind of like very much kind of like risen beyond the Emmy stuff into being like a legendary TV show in its own right. But yeah. Kogia says the Breaking Bad franchise has already got enough accolades. Yeah, but like the thing is, Dragon and I'm not sure if you agree with us, Kogias, but Dragon and I specifically, we truly think that Better Call Saul basically came out like season 1. They were already at the height of their Breaking Bad powers. So it's like season 1 of Better Call Saul comes up, and it's like literally like just as good as any of the Breaking Bad stuff. And then season 2 just like and beyond, they just get better and better. Like by all intents and purposes, I think that Better Call Saul was an even better show than Breaking Bad.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's I know it sounds very crybaby, like but Better Call Saul was better, but it was.
right.
Again, look, I love both of those shows, and it's just the thing of like you could throw a rock and hit any of the cast members of Better Call Saul, hopefully a pebble, not a big rock, and you would. Again, you'd find talent anywhere you turn, whether it's the people behind the camera or the people on screen, doing the performances. In which, again, they all, at a minimum, they've all done something that is very Emmy worthy in that show. I mean, there's like it's an embarrassment of riches of talent and perseverance through the Better Call Saul series, and I know it. I know it probably had stiff competition through the years with other shows, but still, it's the fact that Better Call Saul didn't win a single Emmy. That is criminal.
Yeah, indeed. Let's see. Richard's Victim says if Better Call Saul doesn't deserve an Emmy, nothing does. I prefer Breaking Bad, but Better Call Saul deserves an Emmy. Gosh darn it.
Yeah.
Little Blues also acknowledging another actor who passed away yesterday was William O'Connell. Trekkies would know him as the Andorian imposter in an episode of Star Trek, the original series. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Dragon and I both definitively not Trekkies, but yeah, indeed, for anyone who is, rest in peace to William O'Connell.
Yep.
All right. Next up, Dragon, what do we got?
Well, let's see. Moving on to other first world problems. Jurassic World 4 in the works.
Why does Universal insist on making money, Dragon?
I think they rather like money. One could say it makes the logo go round.
Oh, God. So here's my thing. I kind of wish that, if anything, I kind of wish that this was like going back to the Jurassic Park of it all. I don't know. Like maybe just do a remake of the first film at this point. I don't really know how much else they could get out of the Jurassic World franchise. But Dragon, here's the thing. As someone who is like a sucker for the Jurassic Park movies, even the bad ones, I'm never going to say no to a Jurassic Park movie. I mean, that's my thing. It's like, I we're living in a world where I acknowledge we're never going to top the first movie. I acknowledge we're never going to top the first movie. But I don't know. It's like for dumb summer blockbusters, we can do a lot worse than Jurassic Park. Like just as far as like with any Jurassic Park movie, I at least know that I'm going to get a couple good creative scenes with dinosaurs in them, and hopefully some good callbacks to the original movie. So I'm not as mad about this as people might expect because for me it's just like. I mean, the Jurassic World movies are so far below the quality level of the first film anyways that it's kind of just like whatever they want. I kind of view the Jurassic World movies as like fan fiction more than anything else. So screw it, Dragon. Let's see what other kind of ideas these filmmakers can come up with for this Jurassic Park toy box.
Funny you say that. Little Blue does bring up David Koepp, original writer of the first Jurassic Park. He is returning for one move of desperation. But aside from that, here's the thing. You look at Dominion. Dominion, again, they kind of shot themselves in the foot in a major way because Battle of Big Rock, the short that essentially tied into Dominion, again, that's essentially where you go with that franchise, where you don't need any of the principal characters. The dinosaurs are roaming the world, and you have these encounters that seemingly could be very well budgeted if shot right. And there's your new lifeblood for the franchise, the places you can go, all the potentially interesting directions you could go in that we kind of toyed around with, like briefly in the second Jurassic Park movie, and
Sure.
yeah, so I'm saying that if they, I guess that's really to me that's their only play that they can really make that's actually going to be interesting because it sounds like we're not getting any originals back. It's just going to be, which is probably for the best at this juncture. It's like okay, we're just going forward and it's a world of dinosaurs, and hopefully we're just going to acknowledge, well, this is what life is like now. And no locust. Don't do any locust.
Right.
They honestly just keep it dinosaurs, no locust, and just that's really the work is already done for them. Just
So
do Battle of
basically,
Big Rock.
just make the movie that Jurassic World 3 should have been in the first place. That's
Yeah,
the solution.
that is essentially the solution. Just do Battle of Big Rock as a series of movies.
I feel that. I feel that.
That's all you got to do.
All right, so we've got some casting news to go over. First of all, for the Michael Jackson biopic,
Was announced for 2025.
indeed, and our first big piece of casting, Dragon. I'm personally really excited for this. Coleman Domingo as Joe Jackson. Dragon, if when and if you see The Color Purple, you will understand why I am so excited for this casting because I think Coleman Domingo can just absolutely embody this type of role. I think his work in The Color Purple really proves how domineering and intense he can be as an actor. And that domineering intensity is kind of like exactly what the Joe Jackson character kind of demands. So yeah, I think this is more or less perfect casting in my book.
Now that said, it does seem we're kind of doubling down on Domingo lately in the Hollywood musical biopics because it was announced that now I don't know if he's playing the title role or not. He's going to be in the movie, and he is, from what I understand, I don't know if he's directing it as well. He's involved in the Nat King Cole biopic, which the announcement of a Nat King Cole biopic has me excited. I love Nat King Cole, so that's great. Now, if he is playing Nat King Cole, I mean, Joe Jackson, I can absolutely buy Colin Domingo. Not really know anything about the man's work, but the fact that we cast him in that role in Color Purple, that guy, surely he could be good for Joe Jackson. Surely. I don't know if I see him as Nat King Cole, but I was assuming he is playing Nat King Cole in that movie. But it sounds like he is, and that's going to be, he's going to need some range, but presumably he has the ability to. So I don't know.
All right. Richard's victim says Austin Butler as Michael Jackson. Why did no one make that skit yet? Oh, God, can you imagine?
Well, depending on what era they time for.
Let's see. He says, "I'm still
talking about going method though. Oh, can you imagine the letters Austin Butler would get if he went? If he went
yeah, I know.
Michael Jackson biopic.
He's still waiting for the Bill Hicks biopic. Yeah, biopics about comedians, man. We don't have enough of them because yeah,
we don't have many of them yet.
Right. Considering just how intense many comedians' lives can be. Okay, so speaking of which, though, Dragon, go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna rearrange things slightly here, just because it's a good segue.
For sure.
SNL biopic casting. So this sounds really interesting. They're doing a biopic on I presume the formation of SNL, and we have a number of really great talents cast in our roles here. Gabriel LaBelle or LaBelle. Gabriel, Sammy Fableman from The Fablemans is playing Lorne Michaels, which I think is great casting.
For sure.
We have a number of some people you're familiar with, Tiki, and some of the other roles. Dick Ebersol, basically the other guy who makes SNL happen, being played by Cooper Hoffman.
Yeah, Cooper Hoffman. That's exciting just to see that he's getting work at all because after... I didn't love Licorice Pizza, but I thought he was definitely the best part of Licorice Pizza. Just his role in Licorice Pizza was basically just like, oh my God, look how eerily similar to his father this kid is.
Yeah, now look how eerily similar to Dick Ebersol he is.
Right.
Dylan O'Brien, I believe from the Maze Runner movies. Is that right?
It sounds right. Sounds about right. I'm not
Dylan,
too
I remember
familiar with those movies.
he was being looked at for Spider-Man for a time, if memory serves.
Uh-huh.
Back when, playing Dan Aykroyd.
Aykroyd.
Who told me Dan Aykroyd's in this picture? Okay, the big one from our circle, Corey Michael Smith playing Chevy Chase.
That's big. I mean, big name character to play, and Corey Michael Smith, as you know, freaking, I'm championing him just based on his performance in May December. I don't know, man. If that guy can get a couple more breakthrough roles, man, he can really do something. I'm rooting for him.
Now it's interesting. I've seen Chevy Chase in a biopic one other time that was Futile and Stupid Gesture, in which Joel McHale, who worked with Chevy Chase on Community, played the role, and he did a great job because hangs around with him, and he's also pretty tall. He has a lot of Chevy Chase qualities. Right, that's the barometer I'm measuring Corey Michael Smith against. But looking at Corey Michael Smith, I mean, he's a pretty tall. He's a tall guy. He's got a little, when he gets he's kind of a cocky look on his face. I can kind of see the Chevy Chase in him potentially. I don't know.
Sure.
We have Matt Wood playing John Belushi, and if memory serves, I think hopefully I'm not confusing my Matts here. I think Matt Wood was actually from Clone Wars. That's Anakin Skywalker from Clone Wars. Unless that's Matt Lanter.
I can't really confirm or deny that.
Well, that's something. Unless I'm thinking of Matt Lantner, which again, hopefully our commenters might be able to fact check that for us. But essentially, we have a John Belushi, and we have I think it's a Lamorne. I think it's Lamorne Morris playing Garrett Morris. Now, no relation. Just in case you're wondering, it's purely coincidental. But yeah, the point being, we have a stacked cast. We're definitely doing like the early days of SNL. The real question is, in this biopic, are we going to do? Because you figure they're going to have to at some point. Are we going to do the infamous Bill Murray Chevy Chase feud?
Oh man, I mean, yeah. If you want tension, man, I mean that is one of the big things that I think of when I think of like SNL drama, especially in the early days, for sure.
I mean, certain events that you have, and there's a question of how wide spanning is. I think it's purely just going to be like the early years of SNL.
I would think that maybe the death of like John Candy or something like that would be like the end point, kind of like an end of innocence sort of thing. You know what I mean?
That is true. I mean, that's I wonder if they're going to go really short form as dig into like the formation and stuff. Then Belushi would be your big thing there.
Yeah, John Candy or Belushi. Yeah,
Candy would be interesting. I don't know if that's the thing. If we do Candy, it's going to be a question: is the movie going on too long? But I don't know. They could
You might
jump around a bit
there. Belushi might be a better endpoint.
They could jump around, but imagine if you had a 3-act structure where you had like 3 eras of SNL, where wouldn't that be interesting?
That would be interesting, yeah. Okay, Little Blue says Matt Wood and Matt Lanter are two different people. I haven't even heard of Matt Wood until now.
Well, I know that, so that's what I'm saying. So it sounds like Matt Lanter is probably that's Anakin Skywalker. It sounds like. I'm just trying to. Okay.
All right. What's next?
Let's see. Okay, we're gonna talk about How to Train Your Dragon, the live action adaptation of How to Train Your Dragon, which has Dean DuBois involved, so it's not purely just like Hollywood, just like we can't let anything lie. Seems like
it's kind of that, Dragon. It's kind of that.
It's kind of that. By the same token, though, it's like at least they got the original guy on board, so at least it's it's kind of in-house.
You know what? I wonder how much of the fact that that this is going to be a land in Epic Universe, how much of that is like kind of like.
I think it has a lot to.
Movie.
I think it has a lot to do with it.
You think so?
I don't know. It feels like recently we've been seeing this a lot. We're really. I don't know unless people really want us to talk about, which I don't think we're probably going to wait till next month or something. I don't know, but we've gotten some extra DreamWorks stuff recently, and it does not look promising. And it feels like their Universal's kind of desperate to hey, we got DreamWorks now. We got to use this. And it's like, hey, there was talks of back when DreamWorks was in its heyday. There was a lot of talks of How to Train Your Dragon, but it took so long to develop it. Well, now we got to make it relevant again.
Mm-hmm.
Now that it's ended. For all, ostensibly, not counting some of these weird kind of like kiddified remake things or continuations they're doing now. Yep. Anyway, so I'm sorry. The point being, yes, we have some casting, and some of it does sound pretty on the money. For example, this one goes without saying, Gerard Butler coming back to play Stoic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely glad, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, it does worry me just because it's like, are we gonna see a thing like where he's just kind of too old for the role now? Kind of, I don't know. I'm scarred with the James Earl Jones and the Lion King thing. Like, it
Well,
hasn't been that long ago, but we'll see how it goes.
how old do you think Gerard Butler is?
Like 60s.
I don't think he's that old. I mean, I know he's at the very least. I don't think we're at risk of a James Earl Jones thing happening. Tiki. I mean, he's doing movies and everything. Even if he is gruff, he's a Viking. I don't think it's
All
really
right,
going to
all right.
matter. Aside from that, with Nick Frost playing Gobber.
Yeah, so this is a kind of an interesting little switch up here.
Yeah, I mean that's. I mean, look. Of course, I really wish we went for Craig Ferguson, but I understand if they want to look like Gobber, perhaps Nick Frost a little bit more.
I think Nick Frost, yeah, exactly. I think Nick Frost definitely kind of looks like him a little bit more. And I could see him just getting the comic timing down. Nick Frost is a very
Yeah,
talented comedian in his own right.
it'd be a lot of fun. There are there have been other cast members in this. There's only one more I really want to highlight, and I think we can move on. Julian Dennison playing Fish Legs.
Okay.
Yeah, so Fire Russell from
Right,
Deadpool
right,
2.
right. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
From where the what is it? Where the what's the
I'm for the
movie?
Wilder people.
Hunt for the Wilder People. Yeah, so him playing Fish Legs. I mean, it's
Yeah,
gonna he's gonna have,
that's an interesting casting choice for sure.
yeah.
I honestly think he would fit right into the universe though. I think he's got that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. All right, let's see. So we have some Star Wars news of late, just to kind of acknowledge it there. They've announced some Star Wars things that are happening. Like we're getting a Mandalorian movie, Mando and Mandalorian and Grogu, which is supposed to be directed by Favreau.
Which I'm not gonna lie, Dragon. After I mean, Ahsoka was very much just okay. Mando season 3 was pretty bad. I'm pretty checked out with the Star Wars stuff, man. Just in general.
Look, I think pretty bad may be a bit of an exaggeration with
No,
Mando
I
season.
think that's a bit of an understatement, honestly.
Come
Mando
on.
season 3 was legitimately one of the worst seasons of TV I've ever seen.
Oh,
Dragon, I mean that. I'm sorry. It was awful. It was just totally directionless and just totally unsatisfying. I wish I hadn't watched it.
hmm. Okay. Anyway, well, look. Admittedly, the risk in that is that I think I like where we left Mando and Grogu, but again, right now we have this weird cloud looming over Star Wars, where it's like, okay, we're going to do a big crossover move, but now you have to question the validity of is it still happening or not? And because of that, where does it leave everything else? So, like, okay, we're going to do potentially a Mando season 4. Are we doing the Mando movie? Are we going to skip past all and just have the big crossover thing? It sounds like that crossover thing, if it's still happening, has been pushed to years in the future. So I don't know. I'm hoping we refocus things and kind of keep it simple with Mando and Grogu. That's a hope. Ahsoka is getting a season 2 now. With that, seemingly we're not going to leave it on the weird cliffhanger until we do a big crossover movie with where we left all those characters. I mean, that's good.
I mean, that's fine. For me, like Ahsoka, Dragon, I really tried with Ahsoka the first couple episodes. I really did. There were elements of it I really did like, but ultimately it just left me on such a not even a sour note, just like a really that was it kind of note. Like
Well, yeah.
I just don't know.
Well, here's what I wonder, T. I wonder if you have had the same thought or not. It doesn't feel like it's very much like in the aftermath of sorry, in like the changing plans, Ahsoka really feels like okay, we're building towards something, but unfortunately, doing so, we shortchange the whole point of the show, which is Ahsoka's story. And Ahsoka's like, okay, basically, it's a gateway to Rebels, which will build to a big crossover. And it feels like them reassessing things like, okay, we shouldn't do that, so we're gonna try and salvage like making an Ahsoka show again, which feels like the damage has been done.
No, yeah, the damage has been done, Dragon. That's the key word for a lot of this news that we're talking about,
I
honestly.
like I like to remain hopeful that maybe they can find their way back, and the fact that we're not gonna have to wait forever to see what happens next. But
It's
there's still,
2024 Disney.
well, to be fair, the year has just started, but fair point. All right, let's see. Also, The Bad Batch is entering its last season, so finality. And The Bad Batch has been a quality show, and it's some of the Filoni's animated stuff, which is usually have a good track record of being good. And I've liked the show and hitting an ending.
Mm.
So yeah.
All right, people in the comments speculating about Carl Weathers, and yeah, I very much think that they're probably just going to kill him off
Yeah.
screen between seasons. I would hope.
Honestly, I just think we're just not going to see him again. I don't think we're going to kill him. I just think we're probably just not going to acknowledge it.
I think he's going to have a statue.
That's a fair point. They could probably do
that. All right, especially because the IG-11 statue was gone. They need to replace the statue dragon.
Yeah.
All right. Anyways,
it'll be a horrible thing. They froze him in carbonite for that statue, though.
Oh God.
All right. Let's see. So, okay. So this is something to acknowledge because it's finally happened. It's been speculated for ever, and we finally have a definitive answer on it. It would seem. Daredevil: Born Again, officially in canon. They did it. The impossible is seemingly happened. We are. It's mechanized. Basically, all the Netflix stuff counts. I'm pretty stoked about it.
Yeah, for me, I'm very much kind of in a too little, too late kind of mode with this. We'll see when we get to echo what my current thoughts on Daredevil, on the MCU Daredevil stuff is, but I'm not too optimistic about it, so we'll see. I don't know.
Well, let me.
My patience level for Disney Plus series, just in general, is kind of at a razor thin margin at this point. So we'll see how it goes.
Deke, I'm going to say it one last time until at least Deadpool 3 comes out, but I think it's my prediction coming true in this moment. I really do. I think it's the MCU. I think the main reason this happens, period, is that the MCU is completely and utterly desperate. And I mean, look, I'm sad that it took that to get us to this point, but it feels like, okay, look, Feige and company, they're cutting their losses, they're realizing, okay, we screwed up. We tried just dodging the money that was on the table for so long. We're just gonna okay, it happened. Okay, we're gonna make everyone happy. It happened. We need some goodwill right now. We're desperate for goodwill. The big things we're pinning our hopes on this year. It's it's Deadpool 3, which is a lock. And Daredevil right now is the only hope the MCU seems to have at the moment. With again this canon news, which again is always I've been saying for years, it's the big quiver they have, and it's a big arrow they have in the quiver. They could use the work was done for them. All they got to do is just use it, and I think now they're desperate enough to finally use it. So yes, too little, too late, but right now we're grasping onto anything to pull us out of the hole right now. So I think
fair enough. Okay.
Also,
yeah.
So one last thing. We announced Bullseye, Wilson, but pretty much we're getting everyone. The only one we haven't said is coming back or not is Vanessa, because they initially they recasted her, but she's the only one we don't know if they took time to bring her back or not, given all these new shakeups. So we're going to solve the Bullseye thing. So essentially, it sounds like they're trying to make this season, this Daredevil season 4, which is it does have me very excited.
All right.
Okay.
Trailers. So we have, let's see, we'll start things out with Curb Your Enthusiasm season 12. Dragon, I have kind of a prediction about this season just based on the trailer. Would you like to know it?
I want to. Well, yeah. Tell me I have something to tell you, but you go on first.
All right. My prediction with the trailer is I very much predict that the overall theme of this season is going to be good things happening to Larry David, and Larry David not knowing how to handle the good things happening to him.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's my overall prediction, just on the direction in general.
I don't see it going that way. That'd be a really interesting way to go. It's funny though. This has cracked me up. They put out something. They put a fun teaser. I'm pretty sure it has nothing to do with the actual season, but it's just hysterical. They did this thing where it's like a teaser where Larry David, a flying saucers. This is poking fun at the fact that Seinfeld was very infamous for their finale. Not that it was necessarily bad, but a lot of people weren't crazy about it. It was a very divisive finale. And so the fact is, Larry David has an aversion to finales. So because of that, they're playing with expectations for what the heck the last season of Curb will amount to. And in this little teaser, it was like Larry David walking up to a flying saucer, and he removes a mask, and you reveal he's an alien. He gets on the ship. That's what no, seriously, they did that for like the promo, which makes me that I think that sets the tone for okay, Larry David knows. I don't really. I'm just gonna do. I'm gonna do this last season. I'm not really gonna care what people think, and it's gonna be fun.
Right.
Also, did you hear about the Elmo thing?
No.
Oh my
Oh, I
god!
think
Yeah,
I did. I heard something about it. Yeah.
this is what I'm saying. This is like okay, we're starting this. We're building hype for this
Like
season all
even
the right
before the
ways.
season actually starts, Larry David is out on the front lines doing shit.
Like we're doing the alien thing in the marketing, and now it's like he's strangling Elmo. Oh, it's priceless. So Larry David's been in rare form marketing this season. There's some finality too. I love the whole "Gotta Be Me" song that they're using there. Irma Kostrowski somehow is still around after he wore the Holocaust victim shoes.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm oh, I can't wait for it.
All right.
Avatar.
Yeah, Avatar: The Last Airbender on Netflix. Dragon, it looks good. It looks really solid. I think visually they have it pretty much down. It looks a lot better than the Shyamalan mess was. I guess for me, the thing that I'm kind of worried about is this just going to be basically like a retelling that's just like kind of going through the beats of the original show and not really doing anything original with it?
Well, a lot of people, I'm kind of seeing what they're talking about. They're getting One Piece vibes from this, and people have been loving One Piece. Now,
Which, yeah, that's not a problem because One Piece is but I think Dragon essentially with the One Piece thing that kind of does sort of speak to one of my worries here, where obviously, like with someone like me, I went into the Netflix One Piece show as someone who really doesn't know much of anything about the anime except very, very surface level stuff. And it was a really fun introduction to the characters in the world. But what I'm worried about with the Avatar thing is that, obviously you and me, we're very well versed in the Avatar lore. We watched through all of Korra as well. So it's like, is this show going to feel redundant to people like us, Dragon? I guess that's the main concern I still have with it.
I too have that concern. The only positive thing I can really see coming from it is this. It's two things. Main thing is that they seem to be cutting some of the more kind of fillery, kind of infamous stuff from season one. Like we're not going to do the Great Divide, for example. So it does. I don't know. I think best case we're looking at maybe like a tighter kind of like streamlined version of season one of Avatar. However, the other thing too is like, it seems like they might work in Azula in a way of like knowing where the show goes in the reverence and the prestige of the series. If we take what we know, having gone through the show, and we kind of look back on it, and we kind of like feed it through building, kind of adding a little bit more of a build, like what the Fire Lord and Azula might be doing in the background. That's the only real extra layer you can really add to it. I can imagine that maybe the Order of the White Lotus. Like that's the only like if there's something going on in the background that kind of facilitates the last kind of like the big finale. If it's like literally like a 3 season show that like we know it's like it's building this, but maybe like we're reintegrating certain things like slightly differently enough to really make it like a new experience for people. Because I mean, there are going to be some people who like Avatar, I don't watch it because it's animated, and this is going to be like the thing to hopefully recap that story in a way that's going to make people like, man, I really would love more of this. There's a cartoon. It's
Right.
even better. I'm going to watch it. Obviously we don't really need this show, but I mean I'm interested to see how they do it. Mainly, I think like all of us, we had the attempt in live action and it failed miserably. And just that curiosity of what would it look like, just represented like off off the screen. What it would look like just like literally off the page, like just like how it looks. Like could it sustain itself? And so rarely do we ever get the opportunity to see that done properly. Like what would like your childhood or your like a landmark animated series look like full on adapted, like that's what it would look like in live action.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, next up we have Lisa Frankenstein. This is being directed by Zelda Williams, the daughter of Robin Williams, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Dragon, I'm pretty stoked for this actually. I think stylistically it looks pretty cool. The only thing that I'm kind of hesitant about is high concept comedy, like horror comedies haven't exactly had the best run lately, like looking at Renfield. So I'm kind of worried that maybe with something like this, they're just kind of like putting a little bit too much into it. But I don't know. I'm stoked. I think just based on the trailer, I think it's a really unique kind of lopsided sort of premise with the kind of like turning Frankenstein into a little bit of a like a teenage love story. It's got almost kind of like a Warm Bodies vibe. So what do you think of it? You're not really that much of a horror guy, but obviously you're very big into the Zelda Williams thing with just the legacy of Robin Williams.
Well, I mean, Tig, also I do like Frankenstein, so there's
Sure,
that
sure, that
aspect of
too.
it. I mean, that honestly to me that was the big. So I didn't before I even saw Zoe Williams' name attached to it, I saw like the poster in a movie theater, like one of those big cardboard standy things. It's like Lisa Frankenstein. Like Frankenstein is a love story, does kind of sound, obviously with the whole built-in Bride Frankenstein thing, you
Hmm.
always a little bit of there. But I don't know that. And I saw some familiar names, with Catherine Newton and Cole Sprouse, and it's like, huh, that's kind of interesting. If we're gonna like, we've seen
I mean,
Frankenstein
Cole
adapted.
Sprouse is an actor where it's like that dude picks really interesting projects. I feel like,
Good actor.
yeah.
Again, kind of associated crap over time, but good actor.
No, well, I mean, he kind of reminds me of someone like oh, I don't know. There's plenty of actors that were associated with crap for a long time, but then kind of got out of that. Like
Pattinson.
yeah, exactly. Like he's in that kind of range, I think.
No, no, for sure. I mean, that's what I'm saying. The guy's got chops, but it's good. I'm looking forward to it. I don't think I'm going to see it in the theaters. I don't think. At the very least, I don't know. I think circumstance might. I don't know if I'll be able to see it in theaters, but I do think February is a very appropriate month for it to come out.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. All right. So next up, what do we got?
Let's see. I believe, lastly, sorry, not lastly. We have Ghostbusters: Frozen Empire.
Yeah. So all I got to say about this is that, like, I feel like this trailer kind of captures like if we are going to do just a full blown like almost kind of like a greatest hits of Ghostbusters lore. Like, look, we got Slimer here, and we got the original Ghostbusters. We got Bill Murray. We got like kind of like dark, ominous looking ghosts. Which I will say, the dark and ominous looking villains are definitely the selling point for me personally. Like, this looks fun. This looks like it's a little bit more ambitious than something like Ghostbusters Afterlife, which Dragon again, I still need to see it. It looked charming. It's just I never did get around to it just because I'm not that big of a Ghostbusters guy. But this movie, we'll see how it goes. It's like I'm not really optimistic about it being like a great movie that just totally revitalizes the franchise. But I think I could enjoy it. So again, just I'm just not that big of a Ghostbusters guy to begin with. But what we have here does look solid, especially kind of like the dark. This definitely looks like the most dark toned Ghostbusters movie since the first one, and that definitely counts for something, I think.
Yeah, I get there's in this new trailer. There's like a shot that looks possibly stop motion animated that looks really interesting to me. Like, okay, I think we're a lot of these. Some of the effects do look rather practical versus CG. And I was like, man, that if they're doing that, that means they get it.
Hmm.
It does that would really impress me. That thing. So Peck's back. We're in New York. It's we're kind of getting some the mix of a lot of people know like it looks a lot like the cartoon, which is probably a good move.
Yeah, no, honestly, like a live action adaptation of the cartoon Ghostbusters, that's kind of the perfect move to go in, honestly.
Yeah, I'll admit there's one hesitation I do have with the new Ghostbusters movie. So Finn Wolfhard, in the first movie, I think he fell short. I think it was the writing's fault on that one. Basically, and I wonder if they're going to continue that or not, because it seems like with the last gag of this trailer, he gets slimed by Slimer.
Hmm.
The implication would be, okay, he's the next generation Bill Murray of the dynamic, which the problem being he wasn't that funny or really that cool enough to pull that off in the first movie. So that's the thing. Is like, okay, if we're gonna slime him in reverence to that gig, I just hope that's not what we're conveying there. Because I mean, if anything, Paul Rudd would essentially be kind of somewhat the Bill Murray of that dynamic, somewhat. But even then, he's more Aykroyd.
Right.
Again, I'm not just trying to put them in a box so they have to be this or have to be that. I'm just saying though that was the vibe there in the first movie. It's like, okay, each of them are kind of like in a again, we have like the granddaughter of Egon Spangler. So the idea being each one kind of corresponds to a Ghostbuster from from the classic lineup. So I just wonder if we're gonna just kind of, since we're putting Mom and everyone on the team and putting Melnitz in the suit, like I don't think there are any rules at this point. So I don't know. I'm very much looking forward to it. I'm kind of glad they moved up the release date. Just because I'm eager.
Okay. Code Geass, I'm kind of with you. I do hope that the spotlight is on the original Ghostbusters and they kind of make the new characters into more supporting roles. I think that would be the good way to go. Kind of like the opposite of how they handled the legacy characters in the Star Wars sequels. All right, what's up next, Dragon?
Despicable Me 4.
Oh boy, aren't you excited, Dragon? Fucking Coco Melon baby action.
What?
The baby looks exactly like Coco Melon. You can't tell me that it doesn't.
Coco Melon?
Oh, you don't? Oh, God. Dragon doesn't know about Coco Melon. Dragon, you poor innocent soul, you.
What's Coco Melon?
Dragon, it's like a Caillou kind of thing. It's like an animated show. Like, it's in the baby in Coco Melon. It's all about a baby, and the baby looks a lot like the baby in Despicable Me 4. Anyways,
and you watch this Coco Melon show.
I do not have a lot of faith in this. I will say that I do think that Illumination has been stepping up their game recently. But yeah, with this, it's like just bringing in the baby is kind of like it's kind of the low hanging fruit. It really is. It's like I really don't think it's going to add that much to the franchise, and that seems to be the only card they're really playing here.
Yeah, So look, obviously I have a lot of fun this for the Despicable Me franchise. I think the idea of, okay, well, eventually they would have had a baby if they kind of went forward. So I kind of appreciate the idea. It's not like, okay, she's pregnant for the whole movie, and it's like, okay, right from the get go, baby, new baby, right out the gate.
Mm-hmm.
However, aside from that, it's kind of funny. Like the new baby and it hates him. Problem. Very thin on plot because they've exhausted all story opportunities in Despicable Me at this point. It's very apparent. Basically, you're going to this movie just because, like, okay, you want to hear Steve Carell be funny and see some cool animation, and that's about it.
Pretty much, yeah.
So, yeah, not the best reason to make a movie, but like I said, it's something that, like, for streaming, is like, I'll give it a watch just for the heck of it, just to say, like, for consistency. Like, I've given them. What am I going to do? Go 3 movies in, then not see the 4th one?
I mean, I kind of feel the same way. Like, I will see it eventually, but I'm definitely not gonna go out of my way to see it in theaters. All right, so is that it for the news, Dragon? Should we just jump right into the January movies?
Yes.
The pit of January movies. Ooh, be very afraid, folks. Be very afraid. Okay, so Dragon will start things off with something that I'm hoping doesn't lower to the usual standards of January. The Justice League: Crisis on Infinite Earth. What do you have to say?
Yeah, so this is part 1 of a trilogy that they're doing, and the idea is this is the finale to the recent the Tomorrowverse. The everything started with Superman, Man of Tomorrow. Basically the new in continuity animated films that Butch Lukic was kind of I don't want to say show running, but he was kind of the Feige on. But again, it was a minimized Feige with an ending, and this was essentially the ending that was planned from the beginning. They were always building to with Crisis on Infinite Earths, which of course is like the big story of the DC universe. Like it's the end game of the DC universe. It's the big one, and I suspect that I don't know if the plan was to get more films before we get to this point or not. I mean, my theory is they probably would have gone a little longer and then eventually got to this point, but they shortened it. They got to a little faster, likely due to the James Gunn, the whole animation plans that he has, like Creature Commandos and everything. That is my theory as to what happened there. So I got to admit, the last movie that came out, Justice League War World, I was a little let down by. And the main reason, in part, the main reason was that movie. The big reveal at the end of that movie was like, okay, we're doing Crisis next. Which, well, now we're here. I had my doubts because I think it. I think we rushed into the. We were taking our time establishing these characters in like individual movies pretty well with the Tomorrowverse stuff. Uh, and then the fact is like, okay, we do this World War thing, and we we haven't even like officially done the Justice League yet, and yet the next movie that we're doing is Crisis on Infinite Earths. So I was a little trepidatious going into this. It really made me think, oh, have we learned nothing? Are we not gonna? Why can't we just have it be a standalone sort of thing, like an adaptation versus like does it have to tie into the thing that we're doing? And I mean, I'm not even saying that it would have been a bad idea to have it be in continuity, but it feels like just like we shouldn't do it immediately before we even like have the team and everything. But taking, I tell you, man, this movie didn't go in half cocked. This movie knew that knew that hesitation and knew that
Mhm.
fault, and their solution was rather ingenious. So the Flash, who they had established in Justice Society World War, the World War II thing. I believe you watched that with me. I
I
believe.
did, yeah. Yeah.
So the Flash is kind of our what they're doing. I presume in the three acts of this whole trilogy is act. Movie one is the Flash. Movie two is probably going to be Supergirl. And movie three is probably going to be our finale, which I don't know if that's just going to be like the Anti-Monitor or what, but that's whatever our climax is going to be. However they want to break that down. Possibly Batman. I don't know. Anyway, so the Flash is time slipping, and that leads to a lot of payoffs. In which the Flash is the heart of this movie, and that's the best aspect of the film. This movie is exactly what that Flash movie should have been.
Oh boy.
In no small way, taken this movie is exactly what that live action Flash movie should have been because you're with Barry Allen, you care about him because of his speed. You're allowed to go through different points in time, which allows us to get the origin of the Justice League, which we didn't have time to do a whole movie about. So they're using their time pretty wisely here. And this is an hour and a half movie versus the usual kind of shorter run time. So they're taking their time with these last three movies because they're the last three. Where this whole movie basically sets up the crisis, and Amazo is like our main threat, which is like the whole thing gets the Justice League together. And the way we're telling this story, we pay off some things nicely, like we pay off the post-credit scene of Long Halloween in a really interesting way. So yeah, it's a lot of I liked it. I do really like this. I'm hoping they can stick the landing. I mean, look, I won't lie to you. It still does make me think. I still would have liked more time with these characters before we did something so huge. But I mean, they're telling a good story. I don't know if certain things measure up to like the magnitude of the things from the book. I'm not saying it needs to be like a one for one, but certain huge iconic moments. That's what these movies are going to be measured by. How did they measure up to like the huge iconic moment from Crisis? And I'm I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful it's going to go well with the next two parts, but this part in itself, I think it's a satisfying movie. I think it's pretty good. Admittedly, they did rip off a skosh of Infinity War at the very end. One little bit that happens, like they just ripped that off from Infinity War. They had to realize that. I don't know, but yeah, this I think honestly, I think you'd like it, but I just don't. You are kind of thrown into the water on this one. I won't lie. If you just watch this one clean, you'd be thrown into the water, but I don't think you'd be missing much comparatively. I think it's just kind of the vibe of the movie.
Okay.
All right.
All right, The Beekeeper. Yeah. This is pretty much just throwaway January trash, but it's fun throwaway January trash. I don't know. We got Jason Statham. He's playing like a guy who comes from some sort of top secret military training thing called the Beekeepers, but he also is just a beekeeper in real life. He gets off on the methodology of it, I guess. The film doesn't really do a good job of explaining like if he chose to like go into real life beekeeping because of the beekeeper thing, or if it's like part of the I don't know. It's just very confused. But Dragon, this is basically just like a no holds barred action revenge movie. Josh Hutcherson plays the bad guy in this movie, which really threw me off, but in kind of like a fun way, because it's like, when you first see him, it's like, oh, Josh, you're not the bad guy. You know what I mean? It's like Josh Hutcherson just is very hard to take seriously as a bad guy. So I just kind of felt like that element of the movie just kind of like added to the entertainment value. And Dragon, there's so many B puns in this movie. There are literally more B puns in this movie than there are ice puns in Batman and Robin.
You cannot be
That
serious.
That is probably both the best and worst part of this movie, as far as like, it's the worst part of the movie because if you're going in like and you're not wanting that, then yeah, it's going to piss you off. But if you're going in and you're kind of using the B puns as almost like a drinking game of sorts, then you're going to have a good time. Like, by all means, don't actually take a shot every time there's a B pun, because you will die of alcohol poisoning. But if you just go in knowing the B pun thing and knowing that it's like all over the movie and just laughing every time it comes up, it is exceptionally entertaining. As far as David Ayer stuff goes, I mean, it's better than Suicide Squad, I guess. So, yeah, it's a January movie, but I had fun with it. I had more fun than I thought I would, honestly. Colby says The Beekeeper was absolute garbage, but absolutely fun, too. Let's see, Kogias says the Flash movie is a masterpiece. Yeah, we know you think the Flash movie's a masterpiece, Kogias, and I'll do respect to that opinion for sure. Colby says, I agree with Dragon. This was not my thing, but it's what the Flash movie should have been. I notice you guys don't have January's highest grossing movie, Mean Girls, in the thumbnail. Yeah, no, guys, neither of us saw Mean Girls, unfortunately. So, yeah, we just don't have an opinion on that. I apologize. It just very much didn't seem like my thing. I really love the original Mean Girls, but I just didn't really feel like watching the remake where it's a musical. Just because, I don't know, I just didn't think the movie needed to be a musical. Like, I think if it was just a straight remake, that would have been fine. I digress. Okay, Dragon, what's up for you? What's next for you?
I just prefer Good Girls, but it's anyway. Seriously, wonderful show. Everyone watch it. Good Girls is amazing. Anyway, so Lift. Let me tell you about Lift.
All right.
Lift was is F. Gary Gray's heist movie. This is the guy who did The Italian Job way back when. Yes, basically it's F. Gary Gray doing a heist movie that stars Kevin Hart. It's a Kevin Hart movie. And yeah, it really feels like Kevin Hart. He wants to, he's exploring genres, which he's been doing to varying degrees of success. Because you and I both know that series they did on Netflix, True Story, it was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there was that. He's done. He breached in the drama a little bit with there's that other basically the movie that was very similar to Jersey Girl that he did that was good. Anyway, point being. This movie's got a star-studded cast. We have Renslayer from Loki. She's in this. We had D'Onofrio is in this. Sam Worthington, John Reno, Bern Gorman, who I love. Yeah, so it's pretty standard fare. Look, this is a comfort watch, if anything. It feels like I said, it's we're basically heisting gold from a plane. It's got kind of a neat set piece. It's kind of like Kevin Hart leading a merry band of thieves, and nothing you haven't seen before. I gotta admit, part of me kind of wonders like how some of these filmmakers at Netflix nabs like really feel about these projects sometimes, where it's like because they're going after because they're big names. Like F. Gary is going The Italian Job guy. We want a heist movie. Get the guy who did The Italian Job. So Netflix throws their money at F. Gary Gray and they get him involved, and then you have Kevin Hart probably. I want to do a heist movie. I want something like The Italian Job. Worry not, Kevin Hart. We're Netflix. We're going to get you the guy who did The Italian Job. And you're going to get your heist movie.
Right.
That feels pretty much like what happened here. It's again, it's a casual heist watch. It's pretty much all it is. It's not really inventing the wheel. It's just kind of nice to see some familiar people in it. I don't know. It feels like the cruelest way I could put this movie is it's watered down Italian Job. But I don't know. It was shot nicely. It was harmless. It's a harmless heist movie.
Put that on the poster.
Let me put it this way: I think the people they make fun of NFTs in kind of a fun way. I'll give you that much.
Okay.
There's a lot of NFT that's central to the plot. So like, there's like a whole NFT heist component that does come back.
Noted.
It's January. What do you want from me? Moving on.
Okay. Okay. All right. Speaking of January movies, ISS. Yeah. Chant it with me, Dragon. ISS. ISS. No, no, it's not that good. This movie has a really good premise, though. Essentially, it's like you've got 3 Americans and 3 Russians in a international space station together. A nuclear holocaust starts going off on Earth. You can literally like see the space view of Earth as all the bombs are going off, which is very kind of like uh you know it definitely does kind of send some shivers down your spine, some memorable imagery for sure. And then the rest of the movie is just kind of like the 2 different sides battling for control because they both got orders from their superiors to take over the ISS, the International Space Station. And this movie is very much okay. It's a good premise, but yeah, honestly, it kind of suffers from like that thing with action movies where I just don't think that it was directed well. Where there were many moments with the action where important stuff would happen, and I would be like, "Wait, what just happened? How did we get there?" And it wasn't because I wasn't paying attention. It was just because the way that they shot it and edited it together just didn't make sense. Let's see. Yeah, Colby, I agree that the main girl was Adriana DeBose. Like, great actress, has a lot of potential, but she's been kind of getting screwed over with roles lately between stuff like this and Wish. I really hope that she gets another kind of standout role soon because yeah, she should have been used to add suspicion and not the POV role. You just don't care about any of them. Yeah, I agree. The big problem with the movie is that none of the characters have any sort of personality, so it just kind of becomes like it's just a very tedious movie where you don't really care one way or another what direction it's going to go. I will say the visual effects are pretty decent with the how much wire work there is with them actually floating around in the space station. I think the depiction of the space gravity is pretty believable. But that's about the nicest thing I have to say about this. Really, it's like I don't think this movie is as bad as 65, the Adam Driver time travel movie from last year. But it's in that kind of similar realm where it's a really good premise that just does not stick to landing well at all. It could have been a lot better, but there's a reason why it's a January movie, alas. All right, so Dragon, Self-Reliance, you seem pretty high on this one.
Yes, Tiki, I am convinced you would love this movie. Yeah, this is the directorial debut of Jake Johnson. Of course, Peter B. Parker from Spider-Verse for the kids, also the guy from The New Girl.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he apparently he wrote, directed, and starred in this. He wrote it during the pandemic. You can kind of feel a little bit of that, and just kind of the premise. Love the premise. The premise is, basically this guy is recruited. This guy's just walking down the street, and then Andy Samberg in a limo. It's literally Andy Samberg as himself. It's just like, hey, want to get in the limo? He gets in the limo, and he tells him. And Tiki, oh my god, Andy Samberg has 2 scenes in this movie, but you would love these 2 scenes. The fact that it's like Andy Samberg as himself. Basically, it feels it's hard to describe. It's basically we don't know what happened to Andy Samberg to get him in this situation where he is giving this man the sales pitch, but it's very fascinating when you think about it. Essentially, he tells him there's this dark web reality show challenge, which essentially is like, hey, we will give you $1 million if you can survive for 30 days in our continents, we're going to send people coming after you. They're going to try and kill you, but they're far away and they have 30 days and they might not show up. They might not even find you because it's going to take them time. We've hired like the best killers around the land. It's good, but you have 30 days. And if you can survive those 30 days, you're going to get $1,000,000. But there's a loophole. If you're in the like right next to somebody, proximity wise, you're right next to somebody, they can't kill you, they can't harm you, that you'll be safe. So essentially, that's the premise. Jake Johnson, he just kind of accepts this, and it's just kind of this witty, dark comedy. It's very much in Jake Johnson's voice. I thought it was a very entertaining watch. I mean, just given your love of reality shows and stuff, kind of almost Joe Schmo. There's like an element of Joe Schmo. There's a little bit of Survivor. I
mean, my hang up with this is basically it just sounds like comedy version of The Most Dangerous Game, which there's been a few of those that have been kind of lame.
It's not like an action movie, Tiki. That's the thing. I mean, there's the threat of it, but there's a little bit of tension, but he's not like literally fighting for his life every chance he gets, because it's a guy who's like it's very mundane in a really fun way, where it's like for example, he does his challenge and he collects his family in a room. He basically explains this again. The whole purpose being, he's been given this insane sounding story with like a celebrity encounter that no one in their right minds would ever believe.
Right.
So he tells his family, and they don't want to help. They think he's just crazy or like seeking attention. So you see this guy is he's very steadfast and like, well, I'm going to do this so I don't get killed. So pretty much the thing. It's less about like him getting pursued and killed. It's more of like what a guy would realistically do to avoid this, and just accepting come what may in doing so. So it's very fun in that regard. Again, I'll admit, I think the family was really short-sighted to not entertain the possibilities of telling the truth given the circumstance of death. But again, I appreciate the logic of, like, for example, a lot of the killers, very strategically, are dressed like fictional characters, or like really ridiculous. They're put in really ridiculous outfits that would, again, make any attempt of him telling somebody, just like make them like, okay, this guy's crazy. There's no way someone's going to dress like this trying to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty clever. I don't know. I thought it was. There's James, the homeless guy, who's a really clever conceit of the movie. He's got a kind of a homeless friend. It really works. I don't know. I thought it was very refreshing. It was a very refreshing movie. I rather enjoyed it. I would like to see more from Jake Johnson after this movie. I think he really impressed me.
Okay, cool. All right, next up we have Night Swim, which I did end up seeing literally just because I missed my bus, and there's a movie theater right by the bus stop. So I was like, you know what? Instead of waiting around the hour it's going to take for the next bus to get here, I'm just going to go see a movie instead. And yeah, this is kind of a ridiculous little movie, Dragon. I honestly did not hate it, and I kind of went in expecting to hate it. So there's a couple things in this movie that I do like. Number one, we do have Scott Eastwood, who is I think he's pretty good in this. Actually, I think he plays an ex-baseball player who is suffering from a disease where he's I think he's got MS. I think that's the disease he's suffering from. It's like a muscle condition. Where that's basically like making him out of commission to play baseball. But the thing is, Dragon, the pool that is attached to the house that they buy has healing properties to it that make him a better baseball player and actually cure his MS. But it comes at a cost, and you have to sacrifice people in order to use the pool's healing properties. And that's the premise of Night Swim. And it's really dumb. Colby says, yeah, I think it's crazy that Night Swim is marketed as a horror movie about a pool, but in reality, it's a baseball movie with some random pool ghost. Yeah, I do think that the baseball stuff is probably the most compelling stuff in the movie, just because I think Scott Eastwood is a pretty good actor, and I think he pulls off the, that side of his character pretty convincingly. But yeah, Dragon, I mean, as you might expect, Night Swim is an absolute mess. Megan, it is not. The bad January horror movie is alive and well. I don't think we need to spend too much more time dwelling on this one.
What do you think Megan's going to do if it gets a third movie?
I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe just like a Megan to the third power, maybe?
Yeah.
Like a little 3? I don't know.
Uh,
All right, moving on, Dragon. Let's hit the TV side.
Oh, wait. They
What?
do 2 3s. Megan with with an E, so it's like 2 3s.
Oh my god. All right, there we go. All right, so TV. We'll start with a couple that you and I have both seen. Echo. All right, Dragon, here's the thing about Echo. All right, I want you to know that I went into this show not wanting to hate it. And honestly, this is a show where I do think it has some good elements. I like the Native American heritage stuff. I do. I really genuinely do like that side of the show. The problem is, I don't think there's enough of it, but I also don't think there's enough of the Kingpin side. And what stuff we do get out of the Kingpin side is, I really truly feel like if the Hawkeye didn't water down Kingpin, this show absolutely waters down Kingpin. And I honestly think that we were basically fed false marketing with that one scene wonder of him beating the crap out of the ice cream vendor, because that's basically the most intense we get Kingpin in the whole show. And boom, it's like we already saw it in the trailer. And then Daredevil, Dragon, basically it's a repeat of the She-Hulk stuff where, yeah, he's cool, but he takes forever to show up. And the fight scenes are just not up to snuff with the Netflix stuff. So, Dragon, I have next to no hope for Born Again after all this, man. That's kind of where I'm at with it. It's like, it's going to have the same characters, it's going to follow the same plot lines, but it's not going to feel the same, man. It's not going to be the same show. So, I don't know. Echo, to me, was an endurance test.
Yeah, here's how I felt about it. So I was hyped for it, mainly because of the Kingpin, as you can probably imagine. I enjoyed it. Honestly, I was sucked in. But with the caveat of we doubled down on the Native American culture a little much with the openings. Now, here's the thing.
I was like I said, I was actually like pretty involved in that stuff. So
well, yes, but it's like the balance of it, though. It's like,
right.
While those openings are not bad, the problem is it's kind of twofold. It's basically the big payoff of those openings is the fact that I think it was a big mistake giving Echo powers. I think that was a huge mistake of the show. I think they should have gone with the symbolic thing versus like we literalized, like she's literally tapping in the past echoes from the past to give her powers. I thought that was a big mistake. Sure. And I think all of that, while good, it got in the way of, for me, the most interesting stuff, which I love the Kingpin stuff that we got. I thought it was great when we got it. And here's the thing, it's ridiculous to me that there's no actual follow-up in this show because we shortchanged it so much. There's no actual follow-up to, hey, you had my father killed. That's ridiculous to me. They didn't have that conversation at any point in the show.
No, right, exactly. I mean, that's kind of like my big problem with this show is that we set up major plot points like that, but I don't know, Dragon. Like, to me, it's like this show isn't as bad as Secret Invasion. But man, with some of the stuff that it set up and just did not follow through on at all, it was getting into that territory for me. And you do not want to be even circling Secret Invasion territory.
Here's where I come down on it. Okay, the Native American stuff, the Choctaw town in Oklahoma, that's cool. I like the modern day stuff we're doing with the Native American culture, and I think the only intro that we needed was the very first one, because it threw you for a loop. You didn't know what was going on, but then you saw, okay, that's essentially the earliest beginnings of her bloodline. Then a little bit of heroism in there. That's all you need. The rest of the stuff felt like overkill to me, and then it all paid off to we're gonna have a weak finish where Echo gives everyone powers and they all fight the bad guys just because.
And I kind of feel like just giving everyone powers and fighting the bad guys just because it's kind of becoming an MCU thing.
So that bothered me. However, again, I will stand by this though. Episodes 1 and 4 were the best. I was giddy as a
I will
schoolgirl.
give you that. I will give you that. Episode 1 was great. Episode 4, I don't think it was great, but I think it was definitely the stand. Like, that's the frustrating thing, Dragon, is that episode 1, I do think legitimately it starts things off on a pretty good note. And then I just don't, like, episode 4 is good, but I just don't think we ever, like, get the momentum back that we had in episode 1. And it's very frustrating.
It just, here's the thing. At the end of the day, when I look at Echo, I have two takeaways. All right, one, I was giddy as a schoolgirl when Daredevil showed up. I like we did it as a oneer. We had like them have that fight, that encounter. I mean, I was very satisfied with it. I knew he wasn't going to be in the whole show. I knew he was going to be in one episode. If he's going to be in one episode, that's essentially in the comics. They have like they fight each other. That's how they meet. I was pretty satisfied with that. And then episode 4, the Kingpin. It reminded me what D'Onofrio was doing in that episode reminded me of everything I love about the Kingpin.
Sure, sure.
You know, I'm saying like the whole the dinner scene, the Sunday, the Sunday dinner, like all that, the ice cream scenes, like everything I love about the Kingpin is well represented here. You know, like so. Anyway, so I go through all that. I think the big takeaway is that whatever happened with Echo is that it has reinvigorated a lot of Daredevil interest, and then we're getting all this. I mean, calculator, no, we're getting like the whole canonized thing with Daredevil. It's like it's whether I admittedly it could have been pulled off better, it could have been pulled off more seamlessly, but I'm remaining optimistic. The only bit of optimism I really have left in the MCU and the fact that I'm looking forward to it based on the good things I really did like about this show. So, you know. Yeah.
I hear you. I hear you.
Okay.
All right. Next up we have Ted. Yeah. So, Dragon, this was a big surprise for both of us. We're not going to kind of linger on this because we did a full podcast about it, but I would say this is easily Seth MacFarlane's best work in a long time. I mean, like just the mix of the humor and the heart, I just think was just very on point.
Yeah, I love this. Far better than Ted 2. Again, it really.
I would say it's on the same level as the first Ted, if not a little bit better.
I mean, it's kind of hard to say better or not because there is something to be said for like kind of a very concrete kind of runtime that Ted had the original movie. So I don't know if it's fair comparing them, but McFarlane's live action TV work has been great lately. I think this is a testament to that. I love the cast. It's a lot of laughs. Very strong pilot. To get that out of the way too. Very strong pilot. The Two Dads episode is a follow up. Also really fun.
Mm-hmm.
It does need to be careful because we do veer into going too broad and too along the lines of like of Ted 2, which is if we get a season 2, I just hope it doesn't veer into that territory, which we kind of walked the line. We didn't fall into it, thank goodness. But it's that's just the only fear I have. Or if we go too broad just for a laugh, and we have like too much selective hearing comedy, we're going to say outlandish things, and no one's really going to like respond to anything. Any outlandish thing it's said. So it's kind of like I love that we have like a Bostonian All in the Family vibe to this, which I was really impressed by. Like, okay, we're getting to the roots of all the personal touches of McFarlane growing up here. I really like that. All right.
Okay, totally. American Nightmare Dragon. So I kind of recommended this show to you. And I do remember when this incident actually first happened and the whole like, oh, look, she's trying to pull a Gone Girl. What do you think of this, Dragon?
I love this. I mean,
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, this Netflix is on the true crime rebound at the top of 2024 with this, man. They really are.
Mm-hmm.
At the very least, they maybe had some rough forgetful years last year, most assuredly. But we had 3 episodes, fascinating story. Again, not a murder, which again is what we need more of, non-murder stuff.
Totally.
So yeah, I mean, it's a kidnapping that was too good to be true. Basically, a gone girl in real life with doubts. It's infuriating in all the right and compelling ways to see the investigators like take shortcuts to avoid looking for a fall guy. Which it's gripping. It's shocking how they didn't even look into the possibility of someone else.
Just the way that each episode is framed through a completely different lens and it all ties together really well.
Yeah, very. I loved it.
Mhm.
Yep. And again, I like that not knowing the end. I didn't know the ending at all going into this. Did you?
Honestly, I knew that they weren't gonna get into like I knew that they weren't gonna go to prison, but that's about it. Like I knew that the thing didn't ruin their lives, but that's about it. I didn't really know the how of how they got out of it.
That's the thing. I went completely clean to this, and it was a very great viewing experience.
Uh-huh.
All right.
All right, next up we have Reacher season 2. Go ahead.
Yeah. So again, I still recommend Reacher the series to you. Very good. Season two continues to impress as like an adaptation of the books, where basically Tom Cruise did a version of Reacher, but the whole thing's like, well, Tom Cruise like is a very short man versus like Reacher's supposed to essentially be, if you combine Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno, that's essentially Reacher. Basically if you had basically what if you had Smart Hulk? Essentially is what Reacher is. So Reacher is essentially what if Smart Hulk were even cooler.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, but that's the thing. So this season, that's the whole sell of Reacher. Reacher essentially it works like the classic, Bill Bixby show. Where he goes town to town and basically gets wrapped up in stuff for a season. That's usually how it goes. And this is a season two, mind you. Season two went a different direction with it, which is interesting. Season two, we got into his past a little bit more. His military unit. They're getting killed off in kind of a conspiracy. So he's basically for like $65 million payday. Some bad guys are after $65 million, so they're killing off the people of his group. Robert Patrick is the bad guy. He's very good in this, as he is in so many things.
I mean, Robert Patrick being a villain is pretty much like that's like the ultimate insurance. Like you're going to get a good bad guy when he's involved.
Yeah, he's very intimidating too. But here's the thing: in episode one, they do the cutest little Terminator 2 reference. It's adorable. I mean, it's like really cute. And it was improvised too, which is really funny. Anyway, so for me, Tegan, honestly, the best sell I could ever have for Reacher for anyone right now is like it's the opening scene of season two, which is in the trailer. You can literally watch the trailer for Reacher season two and like the carjacking scene. Like that's all you need to say. Like I want to watch Reacher. That's all you need to see. It tells you everything you need to know about why this character's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, just I had a good time with it. I don't know if it's I never thought about measuring it against the first season. The first season's more the usual formula. But again, it is impressive to me that we're not necessarily following a formula verbatim here with Reacher. So season three is supposed to be adapting like a really well received book in the Reacher series. I mean, we'll see, but yeah, I'm glad we're getting more of it, and I'm very satisfied with it. There's a lot of talk about Alan Richardson playing Batman, and I don't know. I mean, he's really good in this. I can't buy him as no one putting together that this huge hulking man is even if he were Bruce Wayne, this huge hulking man can't possibly be Batman. I don't know if I buy that, but yeah.
All right, sorry about that, Dragon. Okay, so for me, I have The Bear seasons 1 and 2. So, Dragon, this is the show that actually did win all the Emmys along with Succession. And I got to tell you, man, this show lives up to the hype and then some. And I honestly think you would really love it. I truly think this show is going to be like one of the next great TV shows. It already is. So essentially the concept is that Jeremy Allen White, who is between this and his role in the Iron Claw, is fast becoming like a whoa, where did this guy come from sort of actor for me, where I just his talent is just on full display. He plays essentially his family, his brother owned a kind of like a classic Chicago sandwich shop where it was like, like kind of like just like an old school kind of Chicago vibe to it. Like it had the culture, and his this guy's brother, the brother is John Barenthal, by the way, big kind of supporting player. So Jeremy Allen White, he decides to move to New York to get a degree in fine dining and culinary skills. to essentially be like, yeah, well, you're running this this sandwich shop. Well, I'm going to be like a fine dining chef. So, long story short, John Bernthal's character ends up killing himself before the first episode. That's kind of like the inciting incident. Jeremy Allen White has to move back home to Chicago to help with the sandwich shop that his brother never wanted him to work at in the first place, which is kind of a source of tension. And essentially, Dragon, the whole show is kind of like Jeremy Allen White is feuding with I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the name of this guy, but he's the guy who played Micro in The Punisher. Which this guy was John Bernthal's best friend, which I do think is a funny Punisher connection. He's the current owner of the restaurant named The Beef, and Jeremy Allen White wants to turn The Beef into The Bear, which is his concept for a fine dining establishment. And Ayo Edebiri from Bottoms she plays Sydney, who's a new hire. She's the new sous chef in the restaurant. And she is young, but very, very ambitious and very experienced, a lot more ambitious and experienced than some of the older chefs in the restaurant. And the whole show is basically just like a push and pull and a power structure of like the old school kind of like ideals of Chicago takeout culture versus fine dining culture. And Dragon, this is some of the most intense and anxiety-inducing TV that you will see, because the whole thing kind of hinges on how quickly and chaotically things can just like erupt in a kitchen setting. And the editing, the editing in this show is so on point. We've got just Dragon, if you're craving those Breaking Bad kind of style edits and montages and stuff, this is a show for you. It's got just a ton of great food content, just food metaphors. Like, just if you love food, this is the show for you. Dragon, I will say this much. Season 2, we have a flashback episode that is set around Christmas time. And Dragon, it might be one of the most definitive Christmas episodes I've ever seen of anything, and I really think we should cover it for Christmas in July.
Really?
Jamie Lee Curtis is there as the mother of the main family, and she is just like an absolute wrecking ball of drama. We have Bob fucking Odenkirk there as the kind of like the hapless uncle of the family. We even have John Mulaney there. Like, this episode is just jam-packed with guest stars. It's intense. Like, you need to watch this show just for this episode alone. And then the ending of season 2 is just one of the most absolutely bittersweet things that I have ever seen. Just so many mixed emotions. Like, characters on very high highs mixed with very low lows. This show is absolutely fantastic, Dragon. It really is. I think it deserves all the hype. Season 1 has an episode that takes place in one take that's very much like kind of like the chaotic lunch rush from hell, where all the tensions of the season just kind of like boil over and erupt. It's riveting TV, Dragon. It really is. I can't recommend it enough. Also, I'm going to call it like I see it. Jeremy Allen White is the splitting image of Gene Wilder, and the fact that we didn't get him cast as Wonka is a shame. All right.
Might not be able to sing, Tiki.
Yeah, well, still, I don't know. Just, I just think the dude is just like, even if you just look at him as like a spiritual successor to the Gene Wilder like style of acting, like he's got that kind of manic energy down pat. Like, he's a very captivating performer.
Okay.
All right, next up for you.
Masters of the Universe, Revolution.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is season 2 of the Kevin Smith He-Man show. It's on Netflix, which the first season, the reception, well, let me put it this way. The show was good. The reception from the fan base, well, was one of those things. However, Tiki, unbelievably, season 2 went over like gangbusters. I mean, like, very, like, like Kevin Smith's been very, very happy. And like Rotten Tomatoes, they loved it. Like the highest, best reviews Kevin Smith's ever gotten in his career.
Oh, nice, nice.
So yeah, but here's the thing, and I think it's kind of a no brainer. The main reason is they didn't break it up into two parts. It's just 5 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Just 5 episodes, all pretty straightforward, and I think it's like probably 30 minutes each. Yeah, the critics loved it this time around. I suspect because He-Man's in it from the beginning, so there's no like we're taking He-Man out of the equation, like but early on in the story for like the first half of it, which is what people really didn't like about the first season. It's a good show. The animation's great. The voice cast is supreme. Like they have like all the top voice talent is in this, man. Shatner's in it. Shatner's in a very memorable role. Of course, Mark Hamill plays Skeletor. Lena Headey. Everyone you like is in this, Tiki, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. So, yeah, it's just we have some great. Given the first season was called Revelations, but we have some great revelations about Skeletor this season. There's some really good lore stuff, and I want to be very clear. This is someone who knows nothing of He-Man, barely anything of He-Man. Okay, anything I know about He-Man is like through documentaries about the toy. It's about it. So I know nothing really about the lore of He-Man. I was very sucked into it, man. I enjoyed it. Yeah, I think it's. I think they just simply hit the sweet spot with a 5 episode season. This is what it should be. I don't know if they're going to be lucky enough to get more seasons. I mean, if they keep it at 5 like this, I mean, yeah, let's bring it on. This is really good. I mean, I'm sure Kogias has some comments we want to highlight on this, but yeah.
Yeah, Kogias says Revelation was the worst thing to ever happen to He-Man, but Revolution is a huge step in the right direction.
People really didn't like some. I think the diehard He-Man fans really didn't like Revelations because again, we essentially, ostensibly, we killed him off in the first half.
Mm. He also says Lena Headey's the best possible choice to voice Evil Lynn, and I love Keith David as Hordak.
He's an addition this season. He's like essentially the big bad guy, and he is pretty menacing. It's Keith David doing a really good job.
Nice.
So I mean, honestly, I would recommend watching He-Man. I don't know if you can maybe jump into the season 2 without watching season 1. Again, season 1's not bad. It's just
my whole thing is that I'm kind of like you, where it's like I just don't have any connection to He-Man.
I mean, neither do I, and I loved it. So you know, as I'm saying, like not knowing anything about He-Man might be a benefit to you watching this.
Right.
I don't know. All right.
Okay, so Dragon, did you ever bother watching Rick and Morty season 7?
No.
You're not missing a ton, honestly. So here's the thing. I want to acknowledge, like, I do admit that it does seem like, because they're basically like in an unwinning position here with the Justin Roiland situation. And right off the bat, I will say, as far as the recasted voices, I think they do just fine. I think, like, honestly, by the second or third episode, I kind of forgot that they were even recast. Like, they basically just cast people who were able to do pretty solid imitations of Roiland's performance, but then also with the new character stuff they're doing within the season, they're giving them a little bit more depth. I think this season does swing in some bold directions. We do get a few really interesting standout episodes. It's a really good season finale, Dragon. A really good season finale that almost kind of like has some shades of like a Perchance to Dream or like a Labyrinth from the Court of Owls, where essentially it's like Rick and Morty kind of having to face their biggest fears. With Rick, one of the biggest fears is actually being reunited with his wife and what that would mean for him and the existential crisis and how he's afraid to be happy. So that's really good stuff. That's honestly really good stuff. But then there's also really dumb episodes. There's there's a lot of episodes that are just kind of like, okay, like what if we did a send up of the Transformers movie, but instead of Transformers, it's sentient numbers and letters. I'm not kidding. That is an episode. So it's like we have some interesting episode premises, but I do think that the whole setup with this show where we're really past the episodic stuff, but the episodic stuff is the stuff that really works. So it's very frustrating, where I feel like this show just kind of like, it's just kind of trying to do whatever it wants to do, and it's kind of a mess, honestly, with they're just kind of throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks at this point, which I don't know. On some level, there is they basically do like a new version of the interdimensional cable, where they use basically like essentially like an alien creature that's kind of like the Watcher. And so the whole idea is that he's just like, he's watched Rick and Morty and all their adventures, and he's kind of like butting in and kind of like showing you like all these different clips, and they go meta with that. That's a fun episode. But I don't know, man. I think Rick and Morty, obviously the golden age of the show is long dead, and I think my interest in the show is pretty much dead too. A couple good episodes this season, but really it just kind of feels like the wheels are off the ship at this point. All right.
All right. See, I think it brings us to I guess my last one.
Yeah.
Rurouni Kenshin. Okay, so this one's kind of special. See, I don't know. This year, I wouldn't call it a New Year's resolution because it was kind of happening around kind of tail end of 2023, so I don't think it necessarily counts. I've been trying to, kind of reclaim my anime youth through the shows that I loved as a lad. With like the Toonami era for me. I've been trying to like basically watching through the animes that I loved there that really shaped me in those formative Toonami years. Just because again, I can only watch them basically to the halfway point before Toonami essentially went away, or kind of went through the transitional phase that it did. So stuff like Yu Yu Hakusho, which again, coincidentally, the Netflix show just kind of like made relevant again. Of like, hey, Yu Yu Hakusho, it's back, and it's like, okay, maybe I'll give it a watch. Rurouni Kenshin was one of the other ones. Rurouni Kenshin's show I always had a great deal of fondness for, and it had been so long, and I was never able to finish it. I had no idea it went on for essentially 3 seasons. And so I will say this. I was gonna watch it on Hulu, but then there was this really annoying thing of like Hulu. There are 2 dubs of Rurouni Kenshin, 2 English dubs of Rurouni Kenshin, and the dub that's on Hulu has this really weird, random, annoying thing that mentally I could not compute. It's gonna sound really odd, but it's like the Rurouni Kenshin I grew up with that I saw in Toonami, and that at least the Toonami versions, like Batosai the Manslayer. Okay, so Manslayer. Okay, this guy used to kill. He doesn't kill anymore. It's his whole shtick, right?
Mm-hmm.
Manslayer. The dub on Hulu was like Batosai the Manslasher.
Oh God! Oh no!
And it's like that was like episode. Okay, like that line is said like less than 3 minutes into the episode, and
right,
I like paused and like, wait, what did I mishear that? I went back. It's like, oh no, and I looked into it like, oh God, there's 2. No, so I had to buy the DVD.
Oh my God!
And Tiki, I'm going to tell you this. Okay, you're going to love this.
Oh God!
DVD release. It's absurd. Okay, this DVD was all the discs. I mean, all the discs completely in the wrong order.
Oh no! Oh my God!
And one episode essentially won't play properly. Okay, now here's the thing: it gets better. I looked into it. It's not just I didn't just get like a bad like DVD or anything. This is brand new and everything. Here's the thing. Apparently, this is how they released it. It was just completely in the wrong order. That one episode won't play right. This is one of the worst DVD releases I've ever encountered, ever. So I had to painstakingly like do the math and go through like the episodes. Like I had to get the numbers of the episodes right. I had to like rearrange all the discs between 3 DVD sets.
Oh my God!
Just to get in the right order so I could binge it. But again, a lot of love for Rurouni Kenshin. I'm going to do it for Kenshin.
I hope this was worth it, Dragon.
I tell you, man. Well, again, the completionist in
It
me, I
would be
find
very disappointing if in the long run you did all this and it's like, yeah, it wasn't nearly as good of a show as I remember it being. It was kind of mid, if I'm being honest.
so without being long-winded, here's essentially what I got. So watching the show, season one, Blast from the Past, that's the season I very much remember from the Toonami years. Okay, season one very much definitely saw that. That was like very refreshing, very nostalgic, good watch. Now season two is when things started to get interesting, and I started to get to that. And also, I should mention too, I was HBO Max now earns my ire because for a while I was having this same thing, Roni Kenshin on HBO Max. I was like, okay, I'm going to watch through it. They had the proper dub, by the way. I was watching through it, and then I just kind of took a break from it, and then they got rid of it on HBO Max.
Oh, man.
So literally, I got as far as the season two, which essentially is getting to those Toonami years. So season two, I went in pretty much, I saw the beginning of two, I never finished it, because that's where Toonami and HBO Max thwarted me at every angle. But two, man. Two is the dramatics. Two is where the big stuff happens. Two's the Empire Strikes Back season. It's the big one. It's where a lot of big payoffs character-wise for the story we've been telling. With Shishio, voiced by the great Steve Blum, by the way. Anyway, the point being, two is big, two is important, two is a very worthwhile investment. I now know how essentially the important part of the story ends. Problem. Season 3 completely peters out because they did all the important stuff in season 2.
Yeah.
It's not bad, but it's very, think this way, season 2 is like the benchmark, it's the peak. It's like, okay, we cannot do any better than this. And it's like, man, this is just very subpar. It's like, I don't care about religion. Why are we doing this?
Oh, God.
You know, it's like there's like a religious angle because they're going like actual feudal Japan stuff, you know? But anyway, so three's definitely like kind of peters out on 3. It's not bad, but it's just very much like just watching because like, well, it's Kenshin, he's just doing stuff. I don't know, it's okay. But again, those first 2 seasons though, amazing. So yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, look, I achieved what I wanted it to do, and now I know how it ends. And it's interesting right now. They last year, 2023, they did like an OVA, essentially a readaptation of the manga. So it's like they're doing a new Kenshin show. It's telling pretty much everything I just saw, but probably a little differently. Kind of serendipitous, I guess. I don't know. All
right. Okay, The Trust, A Game of Greed. I will be quick with this. So the whole idea with this show is essentially like 10 people enter a house and there's a $200,000 grand prize, which frankly I think should be a lot higher given the premise of the show. And the idea is that they can vote people out. And if they do choose to vote, then even if one person chooses to vote, then the person that person votes for will go home. So it's like basically like majority rules. But even if one person casts a vote, that vote is the majority. So the idea is, do you want to keep the group together and split the prize money, or do you want to get greedy and vote people out? Dragon, the problem is that, like I said, the prize money itself is like, there's not enough prize money to really make it worth it. And B, the way that they cast this show, these people are just not that cutthroat. And so a lot of the time, they just do not vote people out. So essentially with like, I'm sorry, I'm going to give it away, but the show is like 10 episodes long. And in those 10 episodes, only about 4 people actually get voted out. And we're left with like 6 quote unquote winners who split like about $40,000. They each get about $40,000. Dragon, that's less money than you would get from winning Fear Factor back in the day. So ultimately, while I do think that there were some good characters from a reality TV standpoint, I do think there was some good drama from a reality TV standpoint. Ultimately, I just think the actual format of the game was just very broken because it's like, if you don't cast people that are going to be cutthroat, they're not going to be cutthroat. If the culture of the house is that they just want to go into this and split the money, that's ultimately kind of what's going to happen. And ultimately, the people that do get voted out are the people that are actively trying to vote people out. So those are the only people that get actually cut. So yeah, as a game show, it's a very broken premise, but I will say that, the editing, the cast, it's all surface level pretty entertaining, but just the way that it actually ends up, just the fact that it's got 6 winners and the grand prize is like about literally less money than you would have won if you won an episode of Fear Factor back in the day. Yeah, not great. Really not great. Definitely kind of like a candy bar for the brain, comfort food watch on my end from Netflix. All right. Kokios, look, man, I will try to check out Has Been Hotel. I'm not thrilled with Amazon Prime right now because of the whole thing with the ads, but I will try and check it out. I honestly really don't think I'm going to dig it as much as you do. I honestly think that's kind of a generational thing. I just I don't know, man. I just like the style of Has Been Hotel just is not my thing. I just aesthetically, it's just not really that pleasing to me. But I'll give it a shot. I mean, you're not the only person that's had really good things to say about it, so I'll give it a shot. I just don't want you to be disappointed if I watch through it and I'm not like in love with it. So, all right, Dragon. It's time for ketchup, right? I think so, right?
Well, yes, T. That's how the show works. Yeah.
All right, catch-up.
Now, folks, I want to hype this up, okay? This is going to be, we're going to start 2024 off right with the catch-up this month, so buckle up.
Well, yeah, okay, so Mystery Movie 1, Dragon.
Well, wait, Tiki, what about the...
What?
You start us off.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right, okay. All right, RoboCop. Yeah, I finally saw RoboCop. And Dragon, it was a perfectly well done action movie.
Yeah.
I don't really have much else to say about it other than that. Look, man, this is pretty much exactly how I thought I was going to react to it, where it's like, I think RoboCop is just one of those movies where because I missed the boat on it, I acknowledge that it's good. I acknowledge it's got good character work. I acknowledge that it's got pretty good sci-fi, ideas in it. It didn't blow me away, but that's just because I kind of feel like through pop culture osmosis, I already pretty much knew everything to know about this movie before even going into it. So, I am glad that I finally saw it. Don't get me wrong, but like this wasn't like a life-changing watch by any means, Dragon, so I'm sorry to disappoint you in that regard.
Well, what about Kurtwood Smith?
He's great. Don't get me wrong. He's certainly a memorable part of it for sure. And I will say that the actual arc of the RoboCop, like finding his humanity, like kind of slowly discovering who he actually is, that is good stuff. That is good stuff for sure.
All right.
So like I said, it's not like, it's just with movies like that where it's like, it's such a big like monolith of the movie. It's really hard to go into it. Kogia says that's how I felt about the Terminator after I finally saw it. Yeah, I feel like that's kind of like just the thing with like these big movies where it's like if someone were to try and watch The Godfather now, you know what I mean? It's just one of the things where it's such a pop culture monolith that it's almost kind of like I didn't really know what I was expecting going into it, but I definitely like it's certainly up there with 80s action movies, but 80s action movies just aren't really my thing to begin with. So, all right.
Okay, mystery movie numero uno. Whisper of the Heart.
Oh, man. Okay, that's a big one. Okay.
Yes, so this was written by Miyazaki, from what I understand. He did not direct this. I did go into it before realizing that, because I knew Miyazaki was involved. I kind of forgot. I guess I assumed he directed it. But again, it was still rather enjoyable slice of life stuff. This film, again, good Ghibli fare.
I think this movie is one of the great movies about writing.
Yeah. I got to admit, though, I don't know if this is like purely a translation thing or not, but it's the whole, like, the girl doing her own version of Country Road so fervently. It feels, I don't know, it feels very specific, which I can appreciate, but like, really, Country Road? That's what she's trying to reinvent the wheel on?
It is very specific. It's a very specific Japanese thing because that song was really popular in Japan for its
really
stuff. Yeah.
I did not know that. Okay, that kind of makes it
it is a very specific cultural thing.
Nice. that kind of makes it a little better for me.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, yeah. So either way, it's the point that it's a 14-year-old's like definition of what is important. So it's country road and it's a boy.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah.
But it's a nice love story. I don't know, nothing super mind bending, but it's nice. It's a very nice.
There's two moments in this movie that really get to me. Number one is the first time that she openly performs the song for the boy, and then the grandpa and his band comes in to accompany her, and just her reaction to being accompanied, and just like I don't know, that is just some truly uplifting stuff. And then I will never forget the scene where she goes to take her first draft of her book to the grandpa character, and she's like staying up all night just nervous as hell. And when he says that it's good, she just cannot accept that. Like, it's so raw to the struggle of a writer,
Yeah.
All right,
that brings us to a movie that you and I have both seen.
Yes. Hell Camp, Teen Nightmare. All right, yeah, this was really good.
Yeah.
I think I liked it a little bit better than the Boy Scouts one, just because it was a little bit more palatable. I mean, it's still really intense, and you do get the the actual kind of testimonies of the people that went through it. It is a very eye-opening experience for sure.
Yeah, I mean, definitely gave you some vibes of the episode of Batman Beyond, didn't it?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. All right. Okay, ready for mystery movie number 2.
Go for it.
Princess Mononoke.
Oh boy, okay.
So, definitely lived up to the hype.
Ah, nice. I'm glad. Okay.
Yeah, this was, I think, Miyazaki in this movie, he nailed, I want to be very clear, I don't want to speak too much about some of these Miyazaki movies, because, we're going to be doing an event this year, so I'm just going to keep a little more surface level. But yeah, I think he nailed the environmental themes.
The scale in this movie just absolutely blows me away.
Well, yeah. So he's nailing the environmental themes in a lot of his work as he tends to. I think he really nailed it here. You're right. The scale is there's something. It's so weird to put. It feels very cinematic. I know it goes without saying, but there's something like the scope is very just. I don't know. There's something kind of like. Even watching it on the small screen, it feels like, man, you can imagine this thing like in a big old theatrical screen.
Totally.
Because some of us are probably lucky to see it on a big theatrical screen, looking at The Guilty Party and whistling. Anyway, so yeah, I love being at war with the gun. I love that idea in this movie. I love everything about that. We have some nice relationship stuff with Ashitaka and San, if I'm getting his name right. But yeah, it's some amazing tendril animation. It's got real power to it, man. I mean, those tendrils move. There's something menacing and just utterly terrifying, very symbiote-esque.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I'll tell you one thing, Dave Filoni, Jacob would really appreciate this. Dave Filoni, he would go crazy for all the wolf stuff in this movie. He would be. He's gotta love this movie for sure. Like all the wolf stuff that we do.
All right. Yeah, I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah.
Okay, next up for me, we have They Cloned Tyrone. And Dragon, this is a trip. I really like this movie a lot. I'm not sure how much you'd enjoy it. I don't know if it's going to be like too trippy for you. But for me, it definitely had a Jordan Peele vibe to it, where it's all about kind of like the African-American experience, but kind of filtered through a sci-fi lens. We have John Boyega, who is Dragon. He is doing definitely like way better work than anything that we saw him do in Star Wars. Like he's actually flexing his acting muscles here a lot as the main character. And the whole idea is that this is like these characters live in a very kind of like downtrodden, basically like the wrong side of the tracks kind of neighborhood. And Well, there is a conspiracy afoot, Dragon. There is a conspiracy afoot
Isn't there
with
always?
clones. And the clone stuff in this movie is pretty wild. I will say that much. Honestly, I don't really want to say too much about the clone stuff because it's one of those movies where it's like the less you know going into it, I kind of feel like the more you're going to get out of it. Because all you need to know is that clones are involved in the movie, and it is very much a head trip of a movie when it's revealed exactly what the clones' role and purpose is. Jamie Foxx also, this might be one of the best Jamie Foxx roles that I've seen from him. He's the supporting lead character to John Boyega, and I think he does a really fantastic job. I think he's charismatic as all hell. So yeah, I would highly recommend this movie. I do think that it's not a perfect movie. It's a little rough around the edges as far as like some of the I do think you could probably trim out maybe like 10, 15 minutes. It could have been like an easy 90-minute movie instead of an almost 2-hour movie. It's one of those kind of situations. With the runtime, I feel like there's a few plot beats that kind of get like almost happen one too many times and kind of get a little bit repetitive. But for what it is, I do think it's a very creative, very original little movie. Some really, really cool production design with some of the lab stuff that we see with the clones. Yeah, very. Also importantly, we have as the villain Dragon, we have Kiefer Sutherland doing a very memorable, very non-Jack Bauer role as the villain in this piece. He's a reason to watch for sure.
I do like me some Kiefer Sutherland.
Kiefer Sutherland is great in this, Dragon.
Okay.
All right. Next up.
Howl's Moving Castle.
Okay. Yeah, this isn't one of my top tier Miyazaki movies.
I'll admit it's not a premise I was expecting at all going into this movie. Basically it's Miyazaki's take on mortality and aging, which was really, again, it was impressive and very triply kind of like, visualized, like how we kind of shift the ages on the girl, on Sophie. I gotta admit, I think in the dub, which of course the only way I really watch these, Christian Bale got charmed for days as Hal. Thought it was a really good choice. But I think Miyazaki, he has a really well-defined character in Sophie. Got some trippy visuals, with again Hal shape-shifting and the witch and all that, like a little moving castle itself. I do kind of question the plot in places on this one, though. Particularly,
yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I think for me, I kind of agree. The visuals in this movie are great, the ideas are great, but the actual plot is a little all over the place.
Yeah, particularly how we kind of wrap things up and kind of a way raises more questions of like, wait, who's the bad guy again? Wait, what does she want?
Right. Anyway. I feel like Princess Mononoke actually did like, wait, who's the bad guy in this story? But it actually did it well. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. That's
yeah. It's Billy Bob Thornton.
No, it's Guns. Guns are the bad guy. Guns and beheading for money.
Right. But Billy Bob Thornton was so nice in the beginning. He gave him a meal. How could you, Billy Bob?
Only he were wearing a Santa hat, we could do
oh, God. All right. Is that it?
Well, we have more stuff. You have one.
Well, yeah, obviously we have more stuff, but that's it for Howl's Moving Castle.
Yeah, things. Again, I don't want to talk too much about the Miyazaki stuff because we're going to be doing the thing in May.
For sure.
All right.
Okay, next up, American Fiction. I like this movie quite a bit. Here's the thing, though. I feel like this movie, Dragon, the trailers are very misleading because if you go into this movie expecting it to be all social commentary, expecting it to be all about the book that he writes that, he kind of writes out of spite but becomes a big hit, like, the movie is that and it isn't. Like, that is basically like a subplot of this movie, and the bigger plot of this movie is basically just him having to having to deal with his family. Like his mother is in the first stages of Alzheimer's. One of his siblings, something happens to early in the movie that kind of shifts the status quo around. Sterling K. Brown in his Oscar-nominated role is kind of like off the hinges. He's kind of like the the unpredictable family member who's sort of like got his own demons going on. So a lot of it is just dealing with the guy's family, which is good stuff. But I tell you, man, when the movie is focusing on the social satire of the writing, it's razor sharp and it's super funny. And I just wish that more of the movie was in that world. Because, like, I think, honestly, I think if the whole movie was just that, and if the runtime was trimmed down a little bit, I think this movie would have been borderline perfect. Because the social commentary stuff in this movie is just so sharp and so well realized and so funny, genuinely funny. But the family stuff, like I said, it's not bad. Like Sterling K. Brown, like I'm very happy that he got an Oscar nomination. He is playing against type too. Like he's basically like when you think of Sterling K. Brown, he usually plays the type of characters that Jeffrey Wright is playing in this movie, kind of like the guy that's sort of like trying to keep everything together. Whereas Sterling K. Brown in this movie is, like I said, he's playing the more unhinged, troubled sibling of the family. So the family drama stuff, it's not bad. It just kind of feels like it's two movies competing for screen time, and the two movies don't really gel that well together by the end. So it's really good in some regards. Like Jeffrey Wright's performance is excellent. He definitely deserves to be nominated for Best Actor. Like I do think the movie deserves a Best Picture nomination, but just it's very much kind of like in the bottom half of the Best Picture nominees this year, not the top half for me. So it's a really good movie that could have been great if some of the more uneven stuff was kind of edged out a little bit. Ultimately a little bit disappointing, but just because the social satire stuff was so good that I just wanted more of that. So take that for what you will. I still think you'd like it quite a bit if you saw it.
Okay. All right. Next mystery movie. Ponyo.
Ponyo, 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 Ponyo by the sea. All right. I think this movie's delightful, but I also wouldn't be surprised if you didn't dig it.
Okay, so I think I did this movie a disservice going off of reviews. I regret that. I really do. I was very impressed by this. Yeah, I was wrong. I admit that.
I think this movie has some really wonderful imagery. I love the color palette of this movie.
Yeah, it's beautifully animated.
Uh-huh.
It's again, it has a good balance of slice of life and the magical component. It's got that in spades. Admittedly, a little weird in places, but I love
it's Miyazaki Dragon. Being weird in places is kind of the dude's whole brand.
No, I know that. I'm just, that's the thing. It's kind of like it's unique in that way,
Sure.
I absolutely love the score on this. Oh god, the score is amazing on this movie.
I feel you. Yeah.
I mean,
I love the mother character.
Me too.
Miyazaki does really good moms, and this is one of the best ones.
Yep, Mamazaki Day. But yeah, this was Ponyo. I do look forward to discussing further. This one did impress me. I don't really view it as like I don't know if Miyazaki's adaptation of Little Mermaid is like an accurate description of this.
I don't think it's an accurate description either. I really don't.
That's what I'm saying. The only thing it has in common is the weird. Apparently, in the original, Jacob told me this. We weren't really discussing Ponyo, but he brought this up. Like apparently, Little Mermaid in the original story. I mean, I'm sure you know this. Turns the thread is like she turns the sea foam.
Yes.
Which is always like I've heard that. I kept questioning like, wait, sea? Oh, really? Well, that's how she turns the sea foam. So yeah, there's kind of a thread of sea foam appear. So that's like the only commonality that's really between them. And the girl has red hair and she's part fish. That's about it. Anyway, but yeah, good. I got good things to say about Ponyo, which yeah, I guess I'm saying that one really surprised me, like how much I like Ponyo, because I was thinking like, okay, it's gonna be like just some old, like it's gonna be. I think we all associate based on the song, which was wrong minded of me. So yeah, I apologize. Yeah.
All right. Okay, next up for me, the Iron Claw. This to me is probably one of the biggest surprises of 2023. Now, Dragon, I want to emphasize I am not a wrestling guy. I'm not even really a sports movie guy, period. But I do love myself a good old fashioned, like really intense family drama. And this movie is a very intense family drama. So essentially, the whole sell of this movie is that the family that this movie is based off of is, in the movie, it's 4 brothers. In real life, it was 5 brothers. And Dragon, all of them, except for the Zac Efron character, this isn't a spoiler because it's basically the whole like dramatic weight of the movie. Except for Zac Efron's character, all the brothers end up dying in quick succession through the whole fact that the father of this family pushed them too hard. And that is essentially kind of like the connective tissue that links all the deaths together. And Dragon, this movie is very much a push and pull between where Zac Efron kind of sees the damage that the father is doing. He's trying to call him out on it, but the father just does not listen. But the movie also does a really good job of establishing that it's not like the father is just like, like evil. Like, the movie does a really good job of establishing that the father is a very flawed character, but not an evil person, not a completely vindictive person. If anything, the mother character is a little bit more evil just because she's so emotionless about the whole thing. There is some really, really compelling performances in here. Most notably, Zac frickin' Efron. Dragon, this to me is easily Zac Efron's best role so far. I think the dude's done a lot of goodwill since the High School Musical days, but I think this really breaks out into I was frankly kind of heartbroken for Efron that he didn't get into Best Actor this year. I think especially like with people like frickin' Bradley Cooper on the ticket, that to me is a major snub. That is like the definition of a snub. So, yeah, I don't know, Dragon. Like, I know that you're not a big wrestling guy, so I'm not really sure how much you get out of this. But, as just an intense biopic, I think you'd really enjoy it. And, yeah, and it is a very intense family drama. And the Efron performance, along with Jeremy Allen White, is just definitely a reason to watch it for sure. All right, next up,
The Wind Rises.
All right, yeah. So good Oppenheimer, right? Oppenheimer comparison.
There are similarities. So yeah, this is a wonderful film. This honestly is the one I was most hyped for, because given that essentially until The Boy and the Heron, it was the last Miyazaki film. It's again similar to The Boy and the Heron, from what I understand. Again, does have the personal component to Miyazaki, very deeply personal for him. But yeah, I love those personal touches in this movie. I love what it says about Miyazaki. I think it's I don't know if it's like his best of love stories, but I think it's a very nice love story in this. It's got Tucci. Sure. Never a bad idea to have some Tucci in there. I just I love how it was. I love how it was like a swan. I love that it was his swan song for a while. I love the idea this is like the last note he would have gone out on before. Again, I'm looking forward to The Boy and the Heron at some point, as soon as it streams. But until then, it's like looking at this like it's a good story. Again, it has like a lot of the themes that Miyazaki runs with, particularly again the fascination with the aerial stuff. But again, knowing that there's a consequence to it in the time period in which you grew up.
Sure.
So I think that's really fascinating. It's a really good component. Like a man who's fascinated with the flying machine, but the flying machine means death. Like that's really love that kind of like the duality there. Anyways, just the Windrise again. It was it's so weird. I don't know if it's like maybe it's one of my favorites of the bunch that he did. I don't know if it's like the favorite or not. Again, I think maybe by the end of Miyazaki, we'll probably have more of a stance on that. But I don't know. Regardless,
Well, I mean, you're going to need to see The Boy and the Heron,
I
because
know I
that's
want yeah.
obviously going to be the other one. That's kind of like the the end of the era for Miyazaki.
I know, I know. So yeah, this one was a treat, and it was worth the wait. I mean, again, it was kind of again the way I watched these was I filled like the last spaces I had, which predominantly I think ultimately what happened was I saw pretty much like all the early stuff in the first half, and everything else is pretty linear. So I mean, I kind of got
Mhm.
caught up pretty much all my Miyazaki direct stuff caught up here, with the exception of Boy and the Heron.
For sure, for sure. Okay, next up, let me tell you about Society of the Snow. Yeah, this is nominated for Best Hair and Makeup at the Oscars, as well as Best Foreign Language Film. It's done by J.A. Bayona, who did stuff like The Orphanage, as well as The Impossible, and yes, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom as well. um, Dragon, I love this movie. I truly do. I will tell you how much I love this movie, because I have some big praise for it. I think this movie basically eclipses 127 Hours as the definitive survival movie. It's that good.
Mm.
So basically, the movie is it's basically like a team of Argentinian rugby players who are on a plane that crashes in the middle of the Andes. And Dragon, the big thing about their situation is that they are literally like in a valley of the Andes Mountains, where they literally, early on in the movie, they literally climb up like maybe about 100 feet, up the mountain just to see the view, and they can't see their plane. From 100 feet up, they can't see the plane. So it's like, how the hell are any planes flying above them actually going to see them if they can't even see it from like basically ground level? So there's a lot of moments in this movie that are like that, where it's like it's just taking you through just kind of like the day by day of what it would be like to actually be in a situation like this. They tackle the cannibalism, but they tackle it in a really, really thoughtful way, where it becomes very much kind of like a source of morality, a source of conflict between the characters. There is one segment where the plane that they're in, that they're basically using as shelter against the harsh, like snowy winter of the Andes Mountains, gets buried in an avalanche. So they are literally living under who knows how many feet of snow for a variety of days, and it's just it feels so hopeless. But what I think this movie does exceptionally well is that the last 20 minutes, I don't think it's a spoiler to say that ultimately, obviously, a lot of people do die in this, but a handful of people do get rescued by the end. And Dragon, the last 20 minutes basically is the rescue, and then the aftermath of the rescue. It's almost kind of Dunkirk-esque. And it is some of the most cathartic filmmaking I have ever seen put to screen. There's a moment where all the characters are waiting outside the plane. They kind of know that rescue is on the way because they heard it on the radio, but they like legitimately like are so zombied out from the experience that they don't believe it. And then when the rescue planes start coming, they just it is like the most cathartic. Like they just leap to their feet and are just cheering. It's awesome. It's simply cathartic. That's the best way I can describe it. But you got catharsis mixed with genuinely harrowing, heartbreaking sequences, and just long stretches of the movie where you're just sitting there and you're just like, how the hell could these people ever get out of this shit alive? Like this, it seems so hopeless. So yeah, Dragon. I mean, I really love this. I really thought that this was a home run of a movie. Um, I still the other movie that's nominated for Best International Film at the Oscars that I really want to see before Oscar night is The Teacher's Lounge, and that does have the potential to eclipse this. But yeah, as of now, this is absolutely my rooting pick for Best International Film at the Oscars. I thought this was a freaking slam dunk, man. I thought this was great. All right.
Okay, I believe this is the last. Yeah, it's the last mystery movie.
Mm-hmm.
Poor Things.
Oh, poor thing. Oh, God. Dragon, I just want to say, even I have mixed opinions about Poor Things. So what do you think of it?
Okay, so a little context. So I saw this film by sheer happenstance. I was in a position, in the position I was to see this. I saw it in theaters.
Oh, God.
I went in pretty blind. I went in almost as blind as I could be. Now, here's the thing. I went in all the buzz, all the Oscar buzz and everything. I had no idea about the Frankenstein. I really didn't have much of an idea about the Frankenstein component. Maybe here's the thing. I kind of went off of two things that you said about Poor Things, and they were kind of conflicting things.
Okay.
Okay. So when we did Memoirs, you started by saying, like, this is you don't recommend this for me.
Right.
However, when we did the Oscar thing, you said, "Oh, you gotta see Poor Things," left and right. You kept saying, "You gotta see Poor Things," and I wish I remembered the latter more than I did like the most recent time you recommended it. Tiki, I, I, I really didn't like this at all.
It's okay. It's okay. I get it. I get it. Look, honestly, with the Oscars, the reason why I was probably saying you got to see it is just because, like, you got to understand why it's nominated. So, like, for example, Dragon, I understand, like, I completely get you not liking this movie, but you got to acknowledge stuff like production design and costume design is impressive, right? You got to acknowledge that.
I mean, yeah, look, I acknowledge it, but I acknowledge I think certain sets came out better than others. Like when we do like the place in Egypt, like that's not Egypt, but the big staircase, like that's impressive. But, like we're on the boat though. It's like I don't know. The boat itself is great, but I'm saying we look like outside the boat. It looks very, like, I don't know, it looks like they're going for like a weird CG impressionist sort of thing. Looks kind of weird, but here's the thing. So again, I forgot that one key thing you said to me is like, no, this is not your kind of movie. Again, going off all oh yes, all the great poor things.
It's really not your kind of movie. It's really
yeah.
not.
Which again, I wish I remembered that part because here's the thing. I look back on that you mentioned your coverage of Poor Things was very brief. And in that, I just, oh man, I really wish I remembered that very key warning. had I remembered, I would have saw Wonka instead.
I mean, Dragon, I'm really not crazy about how overly sexual this movie is. I'm really not crazy about the fact that in the last 20 minutes, we basically like introduce a new conflict that really hasn't been part of the story at all before that point. So I would say out of the Best Picture nominees, I mean, I certainly think this is better than Maestro, and I also think it's going to be better than Zone of Interest based on what I have to say about Zone of Interest coming up really soon. But it's definitely in the lower tier for me of the Oscar, of the Best Picture nominees this year. It's definitely not on the higher tier.
I guess here's where I come down on this movie, man. If Uncomfortable were a movie, it would be Poor Things.
Yeah,
it's just he's got strong performances. I'll give you that. I love Defoe in it. He's my favorite part of the movie. What
about Ruffalo?
Well, look here. So Ruffalo's fun. He's hamming it up, but it's again. Here's the thing. This movie, it has me with the Frankenstein premise. I love I like the idea that okay, we put what we did with the brain thing. I like that. I think that was. I'm sold on that. But the moment she goes for the cucumber, it's like, okay, we've gone too far.
Oh,
It's
God.
just it's too much sex. The big thing is that I think the ethical thing it turns it uncomfortable in the movie beyond just the fact, okay, a sex scene, you're like, okay, well, okay, logically there'd be a sexual discovery apparently, okay, but then it's the fact like it's nonstop, it's all throughout the movie. She literally, she goes to like a brothel, it's like it's a whole thing, but it's the fact that mentally we make this we firmly establish this mentally brain of an infant, okay, and then we're doing all this sexual stuff. It's just that's
Yeah.
ethically very and also that, and then it's honestly the way you've gone on about Forrest Gump. This is kind of I kind of see the perspective only through this movie. It's like the way we depict the mentally challenged thing in the beginning. It's like, oh, okay, that's
I
really
can kind of
that's
see that. I can honestly kind
like
of see that comparison.
like
That
that's
is
making me
actually
feel
kind of a good comparison.
like that's making me feel uncomfortable.
Especially because, like Forrest Gump, I feel like this isn't like specifically trying to depict one specific mental illness, but it kind of is an amalgamation, which is a little bit offensive in its own right.
So like with Ruffalo is fun, and I can appreciate what they're trying to do with them here, but again, it's just here's the thing. Ruffalo is fun, but he's the guy who steers the movie in all the wrong directions for me. So it's just kind of
Sure.
I'm conflicted on Ruffalo, and I have no idea what this movie really wants to be by the end of it. And I fully agree with you. The whole last 20 minutes thing. I mean, look, had we cut our losses at the wedding thing, it would have been like, okay, it was a very weird, unconventional movie, but I mean, it had kind of a happy ending. And then we do like the left turn. We're like, we're going to extend it by 20 minutes. Why did we do that?
And then also the fact that Ruffalo just kind of like drops off of the movie after
Yeah.
that.
Whereas like, you'd think he would be, if he's going to come back, he would be the guy. But instead,
Right,
like, no,
right, yeah.
we don't do that. We just kind of wasted all that. Anyway, so Tiki, let me put it this way: I was watching this movie, and Tiki, in my life, I have never walked out of a movie in my
Oh
life.
my god.
Tiki, I contemplated, but I
Oh
rationalized that I
god.
genuinely contemplated walking out of this movie. I honestly, in hindsight, I really wish I did.
Oh my god.
I wish I did, but I realized, well, it's been over. I thought the rule was like if it's past 15 minutes, you can't get your money back if you walk out of the movie.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if that's true or not. I heard that from a friend. It's like that was what was going through my head. It's like, well, I'm kind of here. And again, it's like the first, like within that first 15 minutes, we're getting like the Frankenstein premise. It doesn't seem that all that bad. And then it's like after that, like, oh god, by minute 20, it's like, oh.
Yeah.
So if this film gets Best Picture, the Academy's out of its mind.
I don't think anything's getting Best Picture except for Oppenheimer, honestly.
I can only hope that is the case. If this movie gets Best Picture, I'm going to be like, okay, Hollywood has lost its mind. I'm
What about
out.
Emma Stone winning?
I mean, I'm trying to remember who's her competition.
Her main competition is probably Lily Gladstone.
I mean, I would just given the movie itself, I would prefer Lily Gladstone. Got it by comparison. I mean, look, I can appreciate what Emma Stone did with the role. I can appreciate the arc aspect of the film, but I mean, I would rather give it to Lily Gladstone.
I'm kind of with you, honestly.
Yeah.
Okay. Next up we have the Zone of Interest. And Dragon, this is pretty much my version of four things, honestly. I thought this movie was thoroughly kind of unpleasant, but not in the ways that it was trying to be unpleasant. So here's the thing with this movie is that it is very much kind of like you're trying to see the Holocaust like from a distance, where it's like the whole idea is that you got this really ritzy German family. The father is like the head of Auschwitz, the head guard of Auschwitz. And the family home is like right on the other side of the Auschwitz wall. All that is very compelling in theory. Here's the problem. The problem is that I think that I'm in the minority when it comes to this movie. Because I don't know, I was expecting it to be more outwardly intense than it is. And everything I keep seeing about this movie is like, oh, but it's what they don't show you that's intense. And it's like, yeah, I guess, sure. Like that is true. Like, like you don't ever see Auschwitz itself. You just see, like, for example, you'll see the chimneys and you'll see the smoke coming out of the ovens and stuff like that, which it can be impactful. Here's the problem, though. The problem is that that's literally all the movie is. The whole movie is just like, look at these Germans living their boring, ritzy life, and then occasionally, like, ash from the ovens will get in their garden and stuff like that. And Dragon, like, I honestly think this movie would have made a hell of a short film, but dragging it out to a 2-hour runtime, I was so bored by the end of this movie, honestly. Just because the way that this movie shot, for one, is very much like you're almost watching, like, security camera footage or something, which, like, artistically, I get what the director's going for there. I get that it's supposed to be, like, you're supposed to be looking at these people from a distance. I honestly think the bigger problem here is that there's no real narrative push. There really isn't. It's just these people living their lives. The biggest narrative push we have is that Sandra Hüller, who was a big standout, of course, in Anatomy of a Fall, and she's also the best part of this movie, I will say that much. She is trying to push her husband to get, like, more and more of a promotion because she doesn't want to lose the position of the place. Like, she's so in love with this home that she's built for herself that she's kind of blind to the actual horrors of it. And that's a good thing to hang a character on. The problem is that's literally the whole movie. The whole movie is like, look how selfish and vain this woman is, and look how much she doesn't realize how the horror of war is right outside her door. And Dragon, like I said, like, if this was like a 45-minute short film, I think it would have been super effective. But for me, ultimately, it honestly, with the sound design, which is like the big thing that I was looking forward to, Dragon, unfortunately, I kind of feel like the sound design does too good of a job at being realistic. Because while you will hear stuff like dogs barking and people screaming and gunshots in the distance, you will hear all that. The problem is it's so far in the distance that it is barely audible. It's almost like in the back of your head, which I get that as a directing choice, but as a movie experience, I shouldn't be having to struggle to hear the disturbing parts of your movie. And it just all seems too pretentious as far as, like, trying to come up with something that's genuinely really unsettling. Whereas I feel like the striving for pure realism is what kind of gets in its way a little bit. So yeah, this along with Maestro, although this is definitely better than Maestro for sure. But these two are probably the ones that I don't necessarily agree with this being in Best Picture. I really don't, because for me, it didn't work. Like, I can see how I don't know, like, maybe if I were to watch this movie with headphones, like, I thought watching it in a theater environment would be good, but maybe if I watched it with headphones, the actual sound work would be better. I don't know. As you can hear from my voice, Dragon, like, my opinions on this movie, like, I wanted to like it so much more than I actually did. And ultimately, I just was not really that compelled by it. Like, I wanted it to make me sick, Dragon. And it just kind of made me mildly uncomfortable. So, yeah. All right.
And later, on a later note,
and also, Dragon, I have a movie to slot in between this next one and your last one, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Scooby-Doo and Crypto 2.
All right.
Yeah, so I gotta admit, I was looking forward to this, given my affinity for Scooby-Doo and the Batman Brave and the Bold movie. Now, this is not like in the universe of Brave and the Bold, but just the fact that Scooby-Doo crossing over Batman, usually a good time. I've seen Scooby-Doo cross over some of the other heroes, like Wonderland, for example, and it was also quite delightful. So, yeah, this this was cute. It's more crypto versus like the being in Superman's world, as you can probably imagine. Here's the odd choice is that I guess because Superman's rogues gallery can be limiting at times. They're leaning more into Justice League versus just Superman himself, which I don't know if that's a mistake or not, but you know, I appreciate the Superman component, like the deep cut references and stuff, like we're doing. But it just feels like we're doing it through the Hall of Justice versus like like doing other stuff with Superman. I guess they didn't want to actually justify a reason for the Mystery Gang to go to the Fortress of Solitude or anything. They just wanted to like, the Hall of Justice. It's all there anyway. Which kind of works. That's what I'm saying. This movie is purely cute. I don't think it's like genuinely good, like genuinely really impressive, like the Batman Brave and the Bold meets Scooby Doo movie.
Uh-huh.
But I think there's a lot of fun to be had with Lex. A lot of Donner Superman pulls all throughout the thing, which I really appreciated. There's a weird runner with Jimmy Olsen and Daphne, kind of having been an item in the past. Kind of. That's the thing. I kind of wish they kind of did a thing where like Jimmy, they went to summer camp as kids and they kind of dated, but not really. And I just feel like, why? Look, if you're gonna do it, just do it. Okay, don't just soft pedal me there. Don't then like Fred's a little jealous of Jimmy Olsen. It's like a whole thing, but not again. I think would have been more impressive if they actually did date, but they didn't go that far with it. And yes, there was a gag. Making fun of the Superman glasses with Velma, which is pretty funny. But not a lot to it. Just, it's cute.
Okay, for sure. All right, so yeah, today actually, Dragon, in theaters, I did get a chance to see Migration.
Yeah?
And let me tell you, man, this surprised me. It surprised me a lot. I will say this much. This genuinely reminds me of like old school DreamWorks.
Ah.
And I think that this is probably hands down my favorite Illumination movie.
Really?
One of the big things that like really elevates this movie is the score from John Powell. I truly think this score, like as soon as the movie started, I kind of took notice of it. And Dragon, it's one of those movie scores where it's like, I do think that the story of this movie is just kind of okay. It's a pretty basic, like, like parents need to see the value of their children and need to learn to not be so overprotective kind of story. Is Migration better than Poor Things? Probably.
Yes,
honestly,
it is. I've even seen it, and it is. Migration is better than Poor Things.
I mean, Migration definitely doesn't have the same issues as Poor Things does. I do think the animation, frankly,
well, there was that mating scene in Migration, wasn't there?
I do think the animation is kind of beautiful. I think there's some flying scenes that are genuinely kind of gorgeous. Mm-hmm. I think there's a really good variety of different settings and set pieces in this movie. The cast of characters isn't super memorable, but you got a few really fun, noteworthy inclusions, including Danny DeVito as the crazy cantankerous uncle, which is fun. Yeah, I don't know. I really like this one quite a lot. Like, it's not going to be like the same level as like, like a Prince of Egypt or a Road to El Dorado or, like a Shrek 2. Like, it's not going to be that level, but it does genuinely kind of remind me of when DreamWorks would do sort of more experimental. Like, it kind of reminds me of like the same level as like a Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron or something, where this movie, it's got like a lot of unexpected heart to it, and just some genuinely really sweeping vistas and animation and music. So yeah, the soundtrack of this movie, like I said, that is to me like the main component to it. I heard the soundtrack and I was like, my God, like for the Golden Tikis, we really should have nominated the score, because I think the score very much elevates this movie. It really does kind of feel like sort of like a grand animated adventure, even if the story is covering a lot of similar tropes. So yeah, I think it is pretty much hands down my favorite Illumination movie, which is to say it's about an 8 out of 10. Whereas for me, usually the better Illumination movies are like 7 out of 10s. This might be the first 8 out of 10 Illumination movie.
We should take a moment to talk about such a corrupt organization, the nominees committee of the Golden Tikis. I mean, there's somebody we got to stop their monsters over there. They're leaving so much gold on the table. Golden Tikis, more like the brass tikis.
Oh my god.
It's just brass.
Oh my god. All right.
Anyway. All right, last one. Yeah, this last one, period.
Yeah.
Time Bomb, Y2K.
Okay, yeah. I am thinking about watching this, so is it worth it? No.
Well, here's the this I went into, this was kind of how I went into 2024. It's kind of the first things I watched. It's an archival documentary about the whole Y2K phenomena. It's a time capsule piece. It's really well put together. It's very well archived. I mean, here's the I only hesitate because when I went as I was expecting like us now looking back and like maybe editing it that way, like we're talking about Y2K, but no, it's literally just, the whole thing is like it's edited. It kind of you might see as exceeding that expectation. It's the fact like, okay, this thing is just, it's literally all archived footage made into a compelling documentary about, well, I don't know if compelling might be strong. I don't know. I think it's interesting, and I do think it's like it's telling you about Y2K and putting you in the headspace of the people living in Y2K on the brink of like, okay, what the whole thing was about, which is like, hey, when we flip the dial from 99 to 2000, the computers won't be able to handle it, and it's going to lead to the destabilization of society as we know it. So it's really fascinating looking at just like all the paranoia like within a year for that. That's really interesting. So I mean, I don't know. It was interesting seeing the paranoia and like the doomsayers and everything, like the doomsday clock kind of stuff that was going on around that, and like they're pulling on media pulls and everything. So they use like all the media and all the interviews and all the stuff there. So you have like the Family Guy reference with the giant chicken and everything. The whole like it's gonna be Y2K. Everything's gonna melt down. They're using that as like a frame of reference, a little bit of Simpsons and everything. It's all there. I think you'd like it, but I would say it's more of a comfort watch. Like you must watch this now, Tiki. Run!
Sure.
Run to it.
All right, that's about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Best and worst, really quick.
Oh, gee. What would I say is the worst movie? It's Poor Things, man. Come on.
And best?
Okay, best. Well, that's sorry, with all the Miyazaki, it's a treasure trove. I mean, I guess it's kind of between The Wind Rises and Princess Mononoke. I guess I'm gonna say Mononoke.
Okay. All right, yeah. For me, best. I don't know, man. There was some really good stuff. I really liked They Clone Tyrone. But I'm probably gonna have to go with Society of the Snow, which really surprised me. Like I knew I'd probably like it, but I wasn't prepared to love it like I did. And then worst, I'm gonna go with ISS. Like it's really not a terrible movie, but it's very dull. And Night Swim, I feel like, is probably objectively a worse movie, but it kind of kept me engaged a little bit more just because of how stupid that movie was. So yeah, we'll go with ISS. All right, well, big thanks to Kogias and Keeper Colby, as well as Little Blue, for joining us in the comments. Y'all rock, as always. Well, folks, we've waxed on long enough. And now it's time to put the pen down. Until next time, when we return for another fitting chapter in our Movie Memoirs. Fuck me, it's January.